Councillors, please stand. Almighty God, we, the representatives of the citizens of the City of Brisbane, are assembled here to strive and care for the welfare of our city and all its people. Lord, we ask that you guide us in the decisions we make today. Amen. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay our respect to elders past and present. Please be seated. I declare the meeting open. I remind all councillors of your obligations to declare material personal interests and conflict of interest where relevant, and the requirement of such to remove yourself from the council chamber for debate and voting where applicable. Councillors, are there any apologies? Councillor Richards.
Mr Chair, I advise that Councillor Adams and Councillor Owen will be absent today, and I move that they be granted a leave of absence from the meeting.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Marx, that the Councillors Adams and Owen be granted a leave of absence from today's meeting. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Any further apologies? A confirmation of minutes, please.
Mr Chair, I move that the minutes of the 4,606th meeting held on Tuesday the 29th of October 2019 be received, taken as read and confirmed.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Marx, that the minutes of the 4,606th meeting of Council held on the 29th of October 2019 be received, taken as read and confirmed. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillors, can I draw to your attention the public participant for today? I'd like to call on Ms Kate Channer, who will address the chamber today on supporting people with brain injuries. Welcome, Ms Channer. You can present either standing or sitting, whichever is your preference. You have 5 minutes, and which begins when you begin, and you have a clock there on your left to assist with the time.
Thank you.
Welcome, and begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Mr Chair, Lord Mayor and councillors. Thank you for meeting with me today. My name is Kate Channer, and I am here today to speak to you about acquired brain injuries. In 2011, when I was 24, I underwent emergency surgery to remove a 3-centimetre tumour in the third ventricle in my brain. I suffered complications from the surgery and left the hospital 2 months later with an acquired brain injury. I was unable to walk unassisted, read, and could not remember that I had a brain injury due to the severe short-term memory loss that I had acquired. An acquired brain injury refers to any brain injury that occurs after birth. That damage can be caused by a stroke, brain infection, alcohol and other drug abuse, Parkinson's disease, shaken baby syndrome, an accident or trauma such as a fall, car accident, or by something that is very commonly discussed in the media lately, a king hit. So it is quite evident from this list that it affects a broad range of people of all ages and walks of life. A brain injury can happen to anyone. Brain injury results in deterioration in cognitive, physical, emotional or independent functioning. My tumour was not cancerous, so I've had a great number of people think that I'm all fixed now. But the tumour being removed was essentially the easy part. The 8 years following the removal have been the hardest time of my life. I needed to learn how to walk again, read again, do simple everyday things like shower myself again. My brain injury has given me short-term memory loss, which has been debilitating to my life. It has affected my ability to work, study, my social interactions, and things that many of us take for granted every day, like popping into the shop to pick up the milk on the way home. I get to the shop, what am I here for? Or where have I parked my car? Also, far more serious things, like leaving the stove top on. I, like many other brain injury survivors, suffered from depression for many years. The physical disabilities following brain injury can be quite easy to see, but disabilities that affect thinking, emotion and behaviour can be far harder to recognise. It is for this reason that brain injury is sometimes called a hidden disability. Brain injury is common. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, over 700,000 Australians have a brain injury. 3 in every 4 of these people are aged 65 or under. As many as 2 out of every 3 acquired their brain injury before the age of 25, which leaves a long life ahead of them, and the community and health support isn't there. I have found it very difficult to find help and support services in Brisbane. One of the reasons is that the community doesn't understand brain injuries. We need to talk about it more. There are so many avenues that someone can have an acquired or traumatic brain injury, and it affects so many people in our society, far more than we recognise. I have now undergone 9 brain procedures in the last 8 years, and even though I have made the decision to no longer receive any more treatment, it has become extremely important to me that I raise awareness about brain injury. It would mean the world to me if someone going through something similar to me had a better experience and more understanding, so I have made raising awareness a priority on my bucket list. I'd really love your help in doing this. We can start these conversations, raise knowledge and increase awareness in Brisbane. By doing this, we can understand how to make Brisbane a welcoming, inclusive city for people living with a brain injury. I would really appreciate it if you are able to take the time to meet with me so we can talk about how to raise awareness for brain injury and make a difference to those who are affected in our community. I need your help. I can't do it alone. Together, we can help the hidden disability get the support and understanding that it needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms Channer. In response, Councillor Matic will respond.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, and thank you, Ms Channer, for joining us today and for sharing your story. It takes great courage to be able to be so honest and frank in such a public place. I'm sure we're all, when I say moved by what you've said, I think we can all equally say that what you've shared with us today is very moving. And you've raised a really important issue within our community of assisting people who have gone through different traumas and then have to rebuild their lives as you have done with great courage and determination to get back to everyday activity. One of the things that Council is doing currently is upgrading or updating our access and inclusion strategy. Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner has been fully behind the review that we have been undertaking. And one of those things that we're looking at is engaging with the community, with different people with different disabilities or who have suffered different injuries, and how those injuries leave a permanent mark on their life. And then what we can do as a council to update or provide information or put facilities in place within public spaces to be able to assist you in your day-to-day activities. The points that you raised are really, really important. I'd really like the opportunity to have a conversation with you, particularly with the officers who are overseeing this policy, to get your feedback around the kind of challenges that you've faced and the kind of improvements that we can make in our city, in our day-to-day activities, to make it easier for people to get around. This strategy that we're doing at the moment has been built on our previous strategy. In our 2016 to 2020 term, we undertook a huge upgrade of public infrastructure, public transport infrastructure as well, to help people with different disabilities and with different ailments to be able to get across the city. But we're always constantly learning from what we're doing, and engagement is absolutely fundamental to that. So I'd love the opportunity to get together with you, and then you can share your story with the officers so that we can include your feedback into that access and inclusion strategy and the things that Council can do to improve people's day-to-day lives and being able to just get around the city in the ordinary course. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
Mr Pearce will look after. Councillors, now begins question time. Are there any questions of the Lord Mayor or Chair of any of the standing committees? Councillor Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question is to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, this administration has a strong and long track record of strong financial management and delivering balanced budgets. This has allowed us to deliver a record investment in public infrastructure, over $7 billion in the last decade. Standing in stark contrast is Labor's proven track record of poor, reckless and frankly incompetent stewardship of the city's finances. Nowhere is the difference clearer than where it comes to travel. Can you update the chamber on this administration's prudent use of ratepayer funds when it comes to travel, and highlight the rank hypocrisy of the Australian Labor Party on this matter?
Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair, and thank you, Councillor Murphy, for the question. There's a glass box up in Labor Party headquarters in Peel Street which says, "In case of emergency, break glass." And that's the box that they go to when they have no plans, no vision, no idea, and they are absolutely desperate. And so we saw just a couple of weeks ago, they went and broke that glass. They found a new Lord Mayoral candidate, they found a new opposition leader, and they found the blueprint to desperate candidates all over Australia. And that blueprint said two things: salary and allowances and travel, because that's the last campaign that they had at the city level that they thought was effective. They tried it against Sally Ann Atkinson, and they were successful in winning that election. So they went back to that old plan and they dusted it off, and they've been going through it all over again. Very predictable, but unfortunately in this occasion, very dishonest. We know that they have no ideas for the city. We know all they can do is throw mud. We know they've released no policies. We know that their policy is to be wreckers and not builders. But nothing is more evident than if you have a look at the history of the Sally Ann Atkinson campaign and then the election of Jim Surley and what happened after that. Because there's a very wise saying: fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. The people of Brisbane will not be fooled twice by this Labor Party opposition and their grubby, dishonest scare tactics. Because the last time they campaigned on things like salary and travel, soon as they got in, the snouts were in the trough and they went into a feeding frenzy. They campaigned on salary, and then they came in and introduced all these fat allowances, which they loved. They absolutely loved until a matter of weeks ago. Then they campaigned against Sally Ann's travel. And guess what they did when they got in? They went on the biggest splurge of travel that this city has ever seen. Let's put the facts on the table. Last financial year, all of council, and I'm talking about all of the 8,200 council officers that are out there, across all of council's travel bill was $228,000 for the whole organisation. Guess what Labor's travel bill was in their last year in administration? $1.6 million. $1.6 million. Last year, $228,000 for the whole of council. Under Labor, $1.6 million. Now, that wasn't just a one-off thing. The top 4 years of Labor travel, $1.6 million, $1.59 million, $1.3 million, $1.26 million. These are the facts. No one travelled more than Labor councils. Under Labor councils, there was jet setting that happened all around the world. And guess what? The dishonest Sally Ann Atkinson campaign against her, Jim Surley said, I will cut travel expenses and I will only travel economy. And guess what? As part of his swan song, he went on a $50,000 business class trip around the world, a worldwide trip. So yes, these guys are going to relive that campaign. But just like I said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. The people of Brisbane will not be fooled by Labor lies. The record is there. These guys say anything to try and get elected, and when they get elected, they do the absolute opposite. They get their snouts in the trough, they spend money like it's no tomorrow, they run up budget deficits, they run up debt, they run up business class around the world trips, and they run up the biggest travel bills this council has ever seen. That's their record. That's what they will do if they ever get in. and the people of Brisbane will know about it. They will know about it, and they're squealing. They're squealing because they want to get their snouts in the trough. That's why they are squealing.
Lord Mayor, point of order. Councillors, please. There is a point of order to Councillor Shree. Councillor Shree.
Just on disorderly conduct, I think what's happening is that the mayor is getting louder and louder, and then other councillors are getting louder and louder, and
Thank
they're
you,
feeding
Councillor
off each
Shree. I
other.
understand your point. As I say in many times in this place, presentations to the council are to be heard in silence. In question time, I do allow a little bit more energy from people, but please allow the speaker the courtesy to be heard. Lord Mayor, you have 17 seconds.
Thank you. The fact is, you cannot believe a word that comes out of these people's mouths. The Labor Party are dishonest, they are liars, and they will run the most dishonest council campaign you have ever seen.
Point of order.
Point of order to you, Councillor Griffiths.
I just find that distinctly objectionable to be called a liar. We were called, and I'm asking him to withdraw that. It's
Lord Mayor,
not
will you withdraw?
I said the Labor Party are liars, and they are liars.
I'm asking for that to be withdrawn. I'm a Labor councillor in this chamber. I'm asking for that to be withdrawn.
I've asked the Lord Mayor and he has declined. Are there
Well,
any
that's
further questions?
pathetic.
Are there any-
That is absolutely pathetic that this Lord Mayor
Okay,
can
sit
call
down,
people in
Griffiths.
this chamber.
All right. Further questions? There being no further questions, you want me to move on? That is pathetic. Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Chair. I think the Lord Mayor's a little defensive about his rorts. And my question is to the
Councillor
Lord
Griffiths,
Mayor,
you've made your
Chair.
point. Move on.
He's a pathetic little man.
Lord Mayor, Brisbane residents...
Called us liars.
All right.
Brisbane residents today...
Sorry,
will be-
Councillor Cassidy, please. Councillor Griffiths, I direct you to cease interjecting, and if you do not comply with my direction, you will be warned. Councillor Johnston, I direct you to cease interjecting, and if you do not comply with my direction, you will be warned. Councillor Cassidy, please continue.
Thank you, Chair. Brisbane
Councillor
residents...
Johnston, I hereby warn you that unless you cease interjecting and name-calling, you will be suspended for a period of up to 8 days. Furthermore, Councillor Johnston, if you are suspended, you must immediately leave the meeting place and must remain away from all meeting places for the period of the suspension. Councillor
Point of
Cassidy.
order. I'm going to call you pathetic as well.
Point of
The mayor
thank you.
is
No,
calling
no,
us
Councillor
liars.
Griffiths, stop.
And you are going along with it.
Councillor Griffiths, I hereby warn you that unless you cease interjecting and name-calling, you may be suspended for a period of up to 8 days. Furthermore, Councillor Griffiths, if you are suspended, you must immediately leave the meeting place and must remain away from all meeting places for the period of the suspension.
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Johnston.
Yes, Mr Chairman, I think you're part of the LNP Liars Brigade.
Councillor Johnston, Councillor Johnston, I have warned you to stop name-calling, and then you called me pathetic after I told you that if you name-called again, you would be suspended for a period of up to 8 days.
Point of order. I agree with Councillor Johnson. You are a liar as well. It seems to be all right to call us liars.
Typically, I would call on the Deputy Mayor at this point. However, typically I would call on the Deputy Mayor at this point, but she is not here. May I please have a suspension resolution for Councillor Johnston for 8 days, please?
Mr Chair, I move that Councillor Johnston suspended from the services of Council for 8 days.
Second it.
Thank you. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Hammond, that Councillor Johnston be suspended for a period of 8 days for name-calling. Councillor Johnston, please leave the chamber.
I move dissent in your ruling.
I have dissent in my
Seconded.
ruling, seconded by Councillor Griffiths. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The noes have it.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Johnson and Councillor Griffiths. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Councillor Johnston, do not talk to the journalists in the room, please.
Talk about double standards and hypocrisy. Like I was the one calling out in all of that shit about your two parties. For God's
Oh, yeah. Attendants, please close the bars. Clerks, please read the result.
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 18 in favour and 7 against.
The noes have it. Please return to your seats.
Point of order.
Councillor Cassidy, point of order, Councillor Cassidy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I move that the Lord Mayor be suspended from the chamber for a period of 8 days for name calling.
Seconded.
I have a resolution in front of me. I'll come to yours in a moment, but I will now seek on the resolution to suspend Councillor Johnston. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Shreen, Councillor Griffiths. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Please ring the bells. Attendants, please close the bars. Clerks, please read the result.
Mr Chair, the ayes have it, the voting being 18 in favour and 7 against.
The ayes have it. Please return to your chairs. All right, I have a resolution from Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Cook. The problem is, Councillor Cassidy, if you do it the way you've done it, it's a breach of the local law, and it would be illegal, and we would all be in a great deal of trouble, you in particular, if we did it the way that you have proposed.
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Cassidy.
I move suspension of so much of standing orders to allow me to move an urgency motion that this council condemns the Lord Mayor of Brisbane for his name calling.
Seconded.
3 minutes to urgency.
Well, thank you, Chair. We've just seen all that Brisbane can come to expect from its unelected Lord Mayor to come into this place here protesting quite a bit too much about the amount of press that he has been getting and the amount of scrutiny that he's been getting for the blatant rorts and misuse of ratepayers' money on his watch, and all he can come in here and do is call names.
You've given this speech many times. Councillor Cassidy, I am speaking. Please stop speaking when I am speaking. You've made this speech many times. Please, why this matter is urgent right now?
Because we need to show some leadership to the people of Brisbane as a council, because they're not getting it from this Lord Mayor. We've just seen him here in the last 5 minutes get up in here and spray abuse over an entire group of councillors here, calling every Australian Labor Party council a liar to their faces, Mr Chair, and that is not acceptable. People, if you walked around any workplace, if any manager, any divisional manager walked around in infrastructure for Brisbane or transport for Brisbane, one of those depot managers out there in Virginia, and walked around and said to one of those drivers, "Hey buddy, you are a liar," do you think they would get away with that? And does anybody think that would be acceptable?
Well, okay.
That is not acceptable.
Cassidy,
so today, so it is urgent,
urgency.
Chair. It is urgent because we have to show the leadership that this Lord Mayor will not. He is not a leader. And this council should be showing that leadership and saying that is not an acceptable way to talk to your colleagues in a workplace. Do not just say, you people are all a bunch of liars. We heard last week catcalling of Councillor Cook, and this Lord Mayor did nothing. He did nothing to address that. We need to show some leadership as an organisation here and as a whole council, because we're not getting none of it from this Lord Mayor.
On the matter of urgency, all those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Division called by Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Cook. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Attendants, please close the bars. Clerks, please read the result.
Mr. Chair, the noes have it, the voting being 6 in favour and 18 against.
The noes have it. Please return to your seats. Councillor Cassidy, I understand you had a question at some point.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, Brisbane residents today will be lining up across town to pay for their own cabs to and from Melbourne Cup celebrations. Contrast that to day one of this year's Winter Racing Carnival on May 11, when the Deputy Mayor made ratepayers pick up the bill for taxis to Doomben on the day of the 10,000, to Milton, where the NRL Magic Round was being played, and South Brisbane, where a major street festival was in full swing. Council Policy AP 193, which specifically governed cab charge use by committee chairs at the time, is absolutely crystal clear that Councillor Adams should have paid for that travel. Representing the Mayor was not an acceptable excuse at the time. Will you insist that Councillor Adams does the right thing and repay this money, or do you lot really have no shame?
Lord Mayor.
As predicted, another personal, grubby attack. It's all they have to offer, and it's true to form from this unelected opposition leader and his unelected team. The reality is this. Councillor Adams is the Deputy Mayor, and on a regular basis, she either attends functions in her own right as the Deputy Mayor and the Chair of Public and Active Transport, Economic Development and Tourism, or she is representing myself as the Lord Mayor. And on all of those occasions on that particular day, she was attending in an official capacity. Now, the hypocrisy of the Labor Party is demonstrated once again in this question, because on that day I happen to know who else was in attendance at the races, or who was on the guest list, and one Minister Sterling Hinchcliffe. Now, I wonder if he was chauffeur-driven in his limousine to that event at taxpayers' expense. I wonder if he was chauffeur-driven, because the double standards here that the Labor Party portray are very clear in this example. On the one hand, Councillor Adams, who is on the job representing the city and representing myself, has to pay from our own pocket to get to and from, yet it's okay for the minister to take his chauffeur-driven limousine to the same event. This is Labor hypocrisy. This is Labor hypocrisy.
Councillors, please calm yourselves. Councillor Strunk, I have asked people to be calm and to cease interjecting, and as soon as I completed that statement, you interjected. I will not warn you, but please don't do it again. Lord Mayor.
These guys just can't seem to see the problem here. They can't seem to see the hypocrisy in their question. And this is exactly where they get it wrong, because they say one thing here thinking that some fools will believe them, yet up in George Street, we've seen the biggest spending, biggest travelling government this state has ever seen. And in fact, you don't have a few weeks going by when a minister or a premier goes off on an overseas trip. And that's perfectly okay. You don't see a week go by when a minister goes in their ratepayer or taxpayer-funded limo and gets on the booze at a function, so much so that the premier had to ban the booze, yet that's all right. That's okay to these people because they are hypocrites. They are
Point of order.
They cannot see the problem in their question.
The question was, will you, Lord Mayor, insist Councillor Adams does the right thing and repay the money, or do you really have no shame?
Thank you. I trust the Lord Mayor recalls the question, and there is 2 minutes and 32 seconds remaining.
And I think
and he will answer the question.
That someone that would ask a question like this has no shame. They have no idea of hypocrisy. They have no idea of how silly they are making themselves look. because Councillor Adams was not there in her own private capacity. She was not there as private citizen Councillor Adams. She was there as the Deputy Mayor representing the Lord Mayor, and it's part of her job. And you know what? They were quite happy to point out that, oh, it's part of the Minister's job. Well, in every single way that it's part of the Minister's job, it's part of Councillor Adams' job to be there. Because last time I checked, her job was to represent the Lord Mayor at these kind of functions as the Deputy Mayor. And secondly, her job in the portfolio of public and active transport, tourism and economic development is to support the economic development and tourism events of the city, of which these major carnivals are part of that agenda. And so she is doing her job, and that is absolutely appropriate. So what I expect of Councillor Adams is for her to continue doing her job, both as Deputy Mayor and in cases where she's representing me. And what I expect from the Labor Party is not to ask hypocritical, puerile, stupid questions like this, which are all about dishing the dirt, which are all about personal attacks. And it's fascinating to see they can dish it, but they can't take it. See them go to water when they get a bit of it back. When someone points out the facts, when someone points out the hypocrisy, they squirm and squeal. The reality is, this is an opposition with no idea, no plans, no vision, and they only have one job in the way that they see it, and that is to be a wrecking ball. They are the self-appointed wrecking ball of Brisbane City Council. We, on the other hand, are builders. We're building infrastructure, we're delivering green space and parkland, we're delivering major projects that the city needs. We're delivering initiatives that provide benefits to the people of Brisbane, like the seniors' free travel during off-peak times, like the reduction in fees for businesses, like the new first home buyers incentive. And these are the things that the people expect of us, not this grubby, muckraking, personal attack, dirt-digging approach that we see
Lord
from
Mayor,
the opposition.
your time has expired. Further
Point of order.
Point of order to Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Chair. I move suspension of so much of standing orders to enable me to move the following urgency motion, that Council requires Councillor Adams to repay $140 billed to ratepayers for taxi use on May 11 this year in breach of Council Policy AP 193.
Seconded.
I have an urgency motion moved by Councillor Cassidy, seconded by Councillor Cook. Councillor Cassidy, it's a touch complicated, but I think we understand the spirit of what you're trying to say, so I'll allow it. You have 3 minutes. Please limit your comments to urgency.
Thank you, Chair. In the spirit of democracy, let us deal with this in this place without being called names. The Lord Mayor has just said, and I think he's just kicked an own goal, Chair, he just said the Deputy Mayor, this was part of ordinary business for the Deputy Mayor to go to these events. She was repping him, whether she was repping him or not, this was ordinary business that was planned. Now, Council Policy AP 193, which governed the use of cab charge for council chairs, the Lord Mayor, council chairs and senior executives in council. It is a policy that went through the LNP's ENC committee and was ticked off just a few months before these trips were taken. It was very, very, very clear. And why this is urgent to deal with this today is because the Lord Mayor was just given an opportunity as the leader of this city to require his LNP chairs to be held to account, to make sure that they don't breach council's policies like AP 193, and it's very clear that Councillor Adams did that. It's very clear in that policy that says if it's unplanned overtime, or council officers or council chairs for that matter, got caught at an event or had to at last minute go to something, then yeah, maybe they would be eligible to do that. This is quite clearly a misuse of ratepayers' money. We're seeing here a deputy mayor that gets, what is it, $20,000 in walk-around money, gets the luxury car, gets the extra nice car
thanks,
to get
Councillor
around
Cassidy.
there.
That's not material to the urgency at this point. Why must we do it right now?
Because the Lord Mayor just refused. We just asked the Lord Mayor, will you do the right thing and ask Councillor Adams to repay this money? And he has refused to do that. This misuse, this rorting of ratepayers' money is clearly in breach of a policy that this Lord Mayor signed off on. So he is knowingly engaging in systematic misuse of ratepayers' money, and that must stop. And as a council, we have an opportunity here, as a chamber today, to address this. I don't think they will, because Councillor Owen's egregious misuse of ratepayer money for private taxi travel
Mr. Chairman.
was waved through by this council.
I understand Councillor Cassidy wants to make some points, but it's to urgency, and dragging Councillor Owen into this motion is not speaking to the urgency of it.
I agree. Please,
They don't want to hear.
please, Councillor Cassidy, limit your comments to why this matter is urgent and to the material. No, only why the matter is urgent, please, Councillor Cassidy.
We need to set. Well, I think I have established that. The Lord Mayor has refused.
Well, if you've established it, then why are you still speaking?
Well, how long have I got, Chair? How long have I got, Chair?
You have 40 seconds.
There we go. Council employees aren't allowed to do what these LNP chairs are doing. So we need to set an example, and we need to say that while we say to you and we micromanage employees and we set up this culture now in council where we're seeing allegations of bullying and corruption and nepotism all throughout the council organisation, we need to set a standard, and this Lord Mayor needs to do that, and he's refusing to do that, so this council chamber needs to hold him to account and ensure that we stop these rates rorts right now.
On a matter of urgency, all those who are in favour of urgency say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it.
Division.
Division called by Councillor Cassidy and Councillor Cook. Ayes to my right, noes to my left. Please ring the bells. Attendants, please close the bars. Clerks, please read the result.
Mr. Chair, the noes have it, the voting being 5 in favour, 18 against and 1 abstention.
The noes have it. Please return to your seats.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Chair of City Planning Committee, Councillor Burke. Councillor Burke, last week's Council's award-winning Plan Your Brisbane project added another trophy to the mantle, winning the Australasian Project of the Year at the International Association for Public Participation Awards. Can you outline how this project is not only shaping the future of Brisbane, but contributing to best practices?
Councillor Burke.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. I thank Councillor Toomey for the question, and he is right. Plan Your Brisbane did pick up another award last week, Mr. Chairman. And of course, for the Chamber's benefit, Plan Your Brisbane was the award-winning exercise that this council undertook in terms of engaging with residents to help understand how our city is growing and how we can manage that growth going forward. What we know, Mr. Chairman, is that the state government, through their regional plan, has set targets for Brisbane's growth. 188,000 new dwellings between now and 2041, some 300,000 additional residents moving to enjoy the fantastic lifestyle, work and leisure opportunities that our city has. But how do we manage that growth, Mr. Chairman? That is the critical thing. And that is why this administration decided to undertake the Plan Your Brisbane engagement with residents. Those on the other side like to talk the big talk about consultation, Mr. Chairman. We on this side actually deliver and engage with residents. Those on the other side like to throw stones and criticise when we go out and try to engage with people, criticising how much money is spent on engaging and seeking feedback and views from residents of Brisbane. We on this side, though, value the feedback of the residents of Brisbane, take that on board and implement change, Mr. Chairman, responding to the residents of Brisbane and what they tell us. And so we went out, Mr. Chairman, we went out and we engaged with the residents of Brisbane. We had over 20 different type of engagement activities. We had, of course, the online game, which was a fantastic success, and easily educated people about managing growth and how it can facilitate certain outcomes across this city. It was the first of its kind. It was the first of its kind and has been held in its own esteem, Mr Chairman, as a pinnacle of engagement when it comes to community engagement around planning issues. Indeed, other organisations are already talking to Council about how they can potentially use that technology themselves. We had citywide forums, we obviously had the intergenerational forum, Mr Chairman, and all of this generated 15,000 unique ideas, engaging with over 100,000 Brisbane residents, Mr Chairman. 1 in 5 Brisbane residents, someone from every single suburb, had their say and had their bit of information and feedback put into the Plan Your Brisbane. And out of that came Brisbane's Future Blueprint. 40 action items, 8 key themes, Mr Chairman, and this administration has got on with the job of delivering on each and every one of those, Mr Chairman, and making sure that we're creating things for people to see and do. Getting residents home safer and quicker, Mr Chairman. Some great lines, I've read them not only in brochures that come from Council, Mr Chairman, but indeed brochures that come from opposition councillors as well, Mr Chairman. That's how good this information is, Mr Chairman, that those on the other side who criticised the Plan Your Brisbane process, who have attacked the engagement with the residents of Brisbane, have taken the key themes from Brisbane's Future Blueprint and are using them to talk to their residents and explain how managing growth happens in our city. But most exciting, Mr Chairman, is that the award-winning Plan Your Brisbane engagement is now a multi-award-winning Plan Your Brisbane engagement, and indeed international award-winning Plan Your Brisbane engagement. So, Mr Chairman, it's my pleasure to inform the Chamber that just last week at the International Association for Public Participation Core Value Awards, we picked up the award for planning as part of their awards, and that was to Brisbane City Council and Articulus for Plan Your Brisbane. But it doesn't stop there, because we also, Mr Chairman, picked up the Project of the Year, Australasian, for Plan Your Brisbane, Brisbane City Council and Articulus again. But the most exciting, Mr Chairman, the most exciting is that we also picked up the International Award as well, Mr Chairman. So Brisbane City Council's Plan Your Brisbane engagement, the broadest, largest scale of engagement on planning issues ever undertaken by this council, and indeed any council across this country, is now an international award-winning engagement. And so important, Mr Chairman, is the work that we did as part of that, and the framework and the formulas that we came up with, that indeed even the state government, Mr Chairman, is looking at adopting some of those principles and using it as an example to help guide how other councils here in Queensland can engage with their residents around planning issues, to help manage growth, to help facilitate infrastructure, to have the conversation about how we continue to make our city a prosperous city, how we can create things to see and do, Mr Chairman, how we can get residents home quicker and safer, and how we can make sure that we're protecting the lifestyle and the green spaces that our residents want to see, Mr Chairman. And it is so fantastic to see this recognition and this acknowledgement of Plan Your Brisbane, and indeed the hard work of the council officers in this place, Mr Chairman, particularly all of those that have worked not only on Plan Your Brisbane, but on implementing Brisbane's Future Blueprint. And we continue on that journey, Mr Chairman, and I look forward to continuing to deliver on all of those outcomes.
Further questions? Councillor Cassidy.
Well, thank you, Chair. My question is to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, last week LNP councillors continued their long-standing campaign of misogynistic conduct towards women on the opposite side of this chamber, with puerile catcalls aimed at the councillor for Morningside. The catcalls were clearly audible and totally offensive. They were completely out of place in any modern workplace and would attract disciplinary action if they were made by a council employee. Can you detail what action you took to discipline the LNP councillors responsible for this offensive behaviour, or do you encourage it by your silence?
Lord Mayor.
Wow. This is coming from the team with one female councillor. The team that had an opportunity to promote a woman just recently, but failed to. The team that had an opportunity to put a woman in as Lord Mayoral candidate, but failed to. The team that has an appalling record when it comes to female representation, and the team that now wants to point the finger at the first administration in Australian political history that has a full gender balance, a 50-50 split between men and women, and something that we are very proud of, and something that was achieved based on merit. So when you want to point the finger, just remember there's another few fingers pointing back at you. I would suggest that you get your own house in order before you start pointing the finger. Now, as opposed to your record, which is just appalling, absolutely appalling.
Okay, the Lord Mayor's answer will be heard in silence. Don't talk back to me, please. Councillor Cassidy, please just refrain. Lord Mayor.
Now, I expect all councillors to behave according to the rules of this place. And while councillors opposite appear to have a glass jaw on a whole range of issues, they can sling massive personal attacks and all types of mud. They go to water when things get a little bit robust. Now, I didn't hear what they claim to have heard last week. I didn't hear that. And in fact, a councillor got up in this place and made a statement on that. And if you have anything to suggest otherwise, then once again, don't try and make a political point about it. Make a complaint. There's a process in place for dealing with complaints about councillor conduct. Make the complaint if you believe you have anything. But if you want to get up here and do some cheap political point scoring, we'll see it for what it is. But the reality is, get your own house in order before you point the finger at anyone else.
Further questions? Councillor Huang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is to the Chair of the Infrastructure Committee, Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor McLaughlin, yesterday morning, drivers along Kingsford Smith Drive saw another stage of the project reached. With the switching of westbound traffic onto the newly constructed Riverside lanes, can you please update the Chamber on this milestone and how the KSD upgrade will provide 21st century infrastructure that will benefit residents and businesses who rely on road transport through our city?
Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Councillor Huang for the question. Indeed, yesterday was another milestone. We reached another milestone on the Kingsford Smith Drive upgrade project, with the inbound traffic between Racecourse Road and Toorak Road moved onto the new lanes, cantilevered over the river. So now motorists can drive beside the already opened 1.2 kilometre Loris Bonnie Riverwalk, the separated pedestrian path and bikeway along the Brisbane River. Kingsford Smith Drive is a critical city gateway.
Councillor McLaughlin, please stop. Please allow all councillors, please allow Councillor McLaughlin to answer the question in silence. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we all know, KSD, Kingsford Smith Drive, is a critical city gateway carrying an average 60,000 vehicles each weekday and 70,000 at peak times, with approximately 10 to 15% of these heavy vehicles. And while there are these peaks, the road has an all-day demand linking the CBD to the airport, the Port of Brisbane and residential growth areas like North Shore Hamilton and the Trade Coast Commercial Precinct. Mr. Chair, Trade Coast is home to more than 60,000 employees and more than 1,500 businesses, and anticipated to be the second biggest job generator in the South East Queensland region, behind Brisbane CBD. And by 2030, the state government's PDA at North Shore Hamilton is predicted to be home for approximately 15,000 residents and up to 10,000 people in commercial and retail businesses. And combined with Trade Coast, is expected to generate approximately 30,000 extra vehicle trips. We all saw the feature in the Courier Mail last week, this great feature on the airport, and it talked about the growth of this region. Brisbane Airport will have its second runway in operation next year. This future aviation report says passenger numbers are expected to double from 24 million to 50 million in the next 20 years, creating 46,000 direct jobs. And next year too, the new international cruise terminal will be open and is expected to triple the size of Brisbane's cruise industry over the next 20 years. In this document, Connecting Brisbane, with a very fetching photo of the Honourable Jackie Tredd, the Deputy Premier, it makes the point, this document signed off by the state government, identified the need to connect North Shore Hamilton via on-road buses to the existing busway network. And there's been no other investment to provide for that other than the KSD project. Mr Chair, cyclists and pedestrians are already enjoying the Loris Bonny Riverwalk, with approximately 6,000 pedestrians and cyclists using the Riverwalk each week. On the 30th of November, we'll be celebrating another milestone opening. The Brett's Wharf and the new public spaces will be delivered as part of this upgrade to the public, connecting the Racecourse Road retail and dining precinct to the Riverwalk and North Shore Hamilton. Of course, Mr Chair, the ALP has been all over the place in what they've said about this project. In 2008, the then ALP leader, Councillor Sutton, wrote to developers and said that infrastructure needed to be delivered on KSD to deal with congestion to cope with the growth of North Shore Hamilton. In 2012, the then ALP leader, Councillor Milton Dick, stood up in this place and demanded that Kingston Smith Drive be upgraded, describing it as a car park and a congestion hotspot. But they flip-flopped. In 2016, the then Labor mayoral candidate, I can't remember who that was, saying he wanted to rip up the contract and upgrade 3 intersections to the east of Racecourse Road with nothing along the river. They turned their backs on their past support for the project while watching voter support for them going backwards. If the Labor Party had their way, Mr Chair, the upgrade of Cameron Rocks Reserve, where Anzac Day services are held each year for thousands of residents, would have been scrapped. Infrastructure needed to transport the thousands of residents going to live in Hamilton North Shore wouldn't have happened. $70 million of investment in cycle and pedestrian facilities wouldn't have happened. They restored Brett's Wharf and new public spaces wouldn't have happened, and we wouldn't be getting the new public river hub. On their watch, Mr Chair, motorists would have been forced to endure a road constructed for horse and cart traffic in the 19th century, and cyclists and pedestrians condemned to share a narrow path tacked on to the side of the road, although in my experience most people in their right mind refused to use it because it was so unsafe. Mr Chair, we know that the Labor Party lacks the courage to take on big infrastructure projects that our city needs, and at best delivers band-aid solutions. It is this team that's getting on the job with delivering the big infrastructure projects because it's what this city needs, and KSD is on track to be delivered within the announced budget of $650 million and by the date that was the revised date announced by the former Lord Mayor last year.
Your time has expired. Further questions? Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, yesterday you did a media stunt about your signature project, the rolling shambles that Kingston Smith Drive is. Not only do ratepayers stand to lose tens of millions of dollars in contingencies from this poorly planned debacle, and I believe they deserve to know how much that is, but due to your LNP gag order, they will never know. But traders have either closed or are hanging in by the skin of their teeth. Ascot Hamilton Business Collective spokeswoman Ingrid Stephen told media just yesterday she would love to meet the Lord Mayor face-to-face and show him the financials and for him to actually hear the real stories from real families who are struggling. She told a harrowing tale of at least one business owner drawing down their superannuation just to keep the doors open. Why did you hide in the council traffic control room for your media op?
Lord Mayor. Excuse me, Lord Mayor.
Okay. Well, as Councillor McLaughlin has rightly pointed out, Labor's plan for KSD is no plan. Labor's plan is that the businesses in Racecourse Road and all the surrounding area and through Hamilton North Shore get no relief ever from traffic congestion. They have to face an old, dangerous road with no upgrades, no improvements, no opportunity for better public transport, no cycling and walking facilities. That is Labor's plan for Kingston Smith Drive. And so when we talk about the impacts during construction, yes, there are impacts, but you know what? There are impacts for Cross River Rail during construction. There are impacts for any major project during construction, and it is the lazy and the cheap way out. It is the lazy and the cheap way out to take the approach that Labor does. Because if you take their approach, you'd never do anything, you'd never build anything, and we know that's Labor's policy and Labor's plan. That's actually their plan. And when they were in office, when they were in office, for the longest stretch, They built one major project, which was the inner city bypass.
Right. Stop. Lord Mayor, stop. Councillors, calm yourselves. Everyone's a bit worked up today. Please remain silent while the Lord Mayor is speaking. Lord Mayor, would you begin again, please?
Thank you. And so it is very easy. It is very easy to try and do what Labor is doing, because if you did that, that's an excuse to build nothing. That is the excuse to do nothing, to build nothing. But we know what that's their policy. That's their approach. They're against everything. All they want is to attack. All they want is to criticise. They don't actually want to do anything. Now, we have a record of building infrastructure. It is there for everyone to see, and that process continues. That process is ongoing. The investment in infrastructure that we have made is helping to set up the city for the future. It's helping to accommodate the growth of the city. It's helping to provide better public transport and active transport options, and it's helping to create an outcome in the end which is better for local businesses. It's better for businesses on Racecourse Road, and it's better for businesses in the Hamilton North Shore precinct, and it's better for the thousands of motorists and pedestrians and cyclists. It's better for the thousands of transport users. That's what we're working towards. Labor is working to oppose and to criticise and to stop. Labor is working to stop progress.
Councillors, please allow the Lord Mayor to be heard in silence. Councillor Cassidy, please refrain from interjecting. Councillor Cook also. Lord Mayor, please continue.
Thank you. And so we know what Labor's approach is: to do nothing but to criticise, to attack, to wreck. They are the wrecking ball of Brisbane City Council. And they don't care what damage they create. They don't care the havoc that they wreak. They just, you know what? As long as they can get their clutches onto power in March next year, they do not care. And they will use anything and anyone as fodder in their sick political game. And it is a disgrace. But we will keep on building the infrastructure our city needs. We will keep on thinking about the residents first, and we will keep on supporting business across the city with our practical initiatives, whether it's the small business fee reductions that we have brought in, a $2 million reduction in the budget, or whether it is the small business programs that we are running right across the city every week. And you know what? Councillor Cassidy talks about hiding. Well, it's interesting because I was at the end of Racecourse Road just the other day in our small business forum. I was out there on Sunday as well at the end of Racecourse Road in Ascot Park. And yeah, because we are upgrading infrastructure in that area. That's what we're doing. We're building things. We're not wrecking things like Labor. But I was out there for the small business forum just recently, and there were several hundred business people that turned up to that small business forum. And actually, I mentioned it in this chamber at the time. How many questions came up about Kingsford Smith Drive? Not one. Not one.
Councillor Cassidy, if you continue to interject, I will warn you. Councillor, Lord Mayor, please continue.
We're all about building the infrastructure our city needs. And we understand that that does, during construction, generate impacts. We understand that, but you cannot build a major project anywhere without those unfortunate impacts. That is the reality. But we are the team that builds things. We're the team that gets things done. We're the team that upgrades infrastructure and provides a better Brisbane and builds a better Brisbane. What we have opposite is a team with no plans. And I'm being generous to call them a team. They have a plan to wreck Brisbane City Council, and anyone that gets in their way will just become cannon fodder for their political games.
Further questions? Councillor Richards.
Thank you, Mr Chair. My question is to the Chair of the Environment, Parks and Sustainability Committee, Councillor Hammond. Councillor Hammond, in this year's budget, this administration committed to continuing our free native tree program, giving residents 2 free saplings each year. Can you outline how residents can contribute to a cleaner and greener Brisbane through this program?
Actually, longer.
Hang on.
Thank you.
Hang on. Wait till everyone stops speaking. No, stops interjecting. Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Councillor Richards, for the question. This administration is also all about supporting Brisbane residents to adopt a sustainable lifestyle so we can work together to create a green city. I heard the call out over there from one of the opposition lead, he was the opposition leader, sorry, that was a slip of the tongue, sorry, Councillor Cummings, you got dumped. Brisbane City Council is proud to facilitate Australia's oldest free native tree plant program, which dates back to the 1960s. So it's a little bit longer than 30 years ago, Councillor Cummings. As local councillors in this area will know and appreciate, the residents love this program. Council distributes about 45,000 trees a year to our residents, and since 2005 we've given out over 650 trees to be planted across our community. What is absolutely beautiful about this is the native trees, they're Queensland-based trees, they're natives, they use less water. Of course, in my household, I leave watering and growing things up to my husband, who's the farmer in the house, definitely not myself. But these trees end up providing shade and places for animals, native animals, to live and thrive, whether it's for the shade or the food that they produce for our animals. Most recently, this year, Councillor Davis would know that we opened the Downfall Creek nursery, that people can go down with your recently paid rates notice, go down, show that over and get your 2 free native plants. So that makes 6 different locations that people can go and collect their plants from across our city. But wait, there is more. We are about to open the Karawatha Forest, where they can go down there to the Environment Centre down there and pick up their free native trees down there as well. So that helps the south sides. People make it easier for them to go and get their plants to plant across our city. What I love about this administration is that we are truly, truly dedicated to a clean, green, sustainable city. This is just another way that the Lord Mayor of Brisbane is getting Bris better and providing for the people across Brisbane. Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor Sri.
Thanks, Mr Chair. My questions to the Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, almost 18 months ago now, the administration committed publicly in the blueprint for Brisbane that it would introduce a requirement that for multi-residential dwellings, 15% of the site would be set aside for deep planting. So we've had that commitment and we still haven't seen any tangible action towards that. I'm keen to understand from you, what are the major barriers to introducing that reform? Why is it taking so long and when will that actually be implemented?
Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sri, for the question. Certainly increasing the deep planting, the greenery and the tree cover when it comes to new development is a priority for the administration, but it's also a priority for the community and something that came out of, very clearly out of the future blueprint document, where people understand that the city is growing and one of the important things to do going forward is to make sure that we have quality design, and that quality design almost in all cases is made even better by deep planting, by more greenery associated with new development and new buildings. So that is something that I think we can all agree on, and something that we all want to achieve. There are a number of initiatives that we are pursuing as an administration to achieve that, and we've certainly started that process. Now, with any changes to the city plan, with any changes to planning legislation, whether it's the city plan documents itself, and all the associated codes. That requires time. We have some documentation ready to go on that at the moment, and we'll be progressing with our intended changes to the plan to facilitate the type of outcome that Councillor Sri is talking about. It is something that we absolutely want to see. I've seen some great examples.
Point of order, Councillor Sri.
The question was about when it will be introduced, and the Lord Mayor still hasn't actually answered the question.
Thank you, Councillor Sri. Lord Mayor, you've got 3 minutes, 23 seconds. Please address the question.
We've had one major amendment package brought through already that includes these changes. There is also a second part to that which will be brought through shortly. We've also been consulting with the community when it comes to quality design and what the community wants to see when it comes to design and achieving those quality outcomes. And we are seeing the development industry, and particularly some of the leaders in that industry, moving increasingly towards deep planting in their developments. It's happening more and more. And in fact, it was great to be in Councillor Shree's ward at the Oxley and Stirling development, which is in South Brisbane. That is an absolutely award-winning development which shows the type of development we would like to see going forward in the city, which has a whole range of deep planting and greenery, not only at the base of the building, but on the rooftop. And the design of that building is something that we would like to see replicated and encouraged in other developments. And we will be making the changes to our planning scheme that we need to make to help facilitate that. This is something that I am absolutely passionate about. When I was in Singapore a few years back, it struck me that in a subtropical climate like Brisbane, we should be aiming for the kind of greenery on buildings that we see in places like Singapore. And Singapore is very much leading the way in this field. They have some amazing outcomes that have been achieved with greenery, not only at the base of buildings, but also all the way through buildings. And they have mezzanine levels in buildings which are effectively like parks in the sky. And so they've achieved some great things in Singapore. And I think we need to continue to adjust our planning scheme to make sure that we encourage this kind of development, which is green and sustainable, and which ensures that the environment that people are living in the future is a greener one and a cleaner one. And that's done in a combination of council buying new parkland and saving bushland, but also by incorporating greenery into the new buildings that occur. So we have seen movement in this field. We will continue to do what we can to encourage and support it. I think that it is a good thing, and I think that it's something that we can all get on board and support.
That concludes question time. Councillors, I draw your attention to the committee reports. Lord Mayor, the Establishment Coordination Committee, please.
Mr Chair, I move the report of the Establishment and Coordination Committee meeting held on Monday 28th of October 2019 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by the Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Richards, that the report of the Establishment Coordination Committee meeting held on Monday the 28th of October 2019 be adopted. Is there any debate? Lord Mayor.
Mr Chair, I request that Clause A of the report of the E&C Committee be taken seriatim for debate and voting purposes, and that we deal with Clause B first.
All right, so Clause A will be taken seriatim for debate and vote, and we will deal with the at-large section and B first. Lord Mayor, please continue.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I've been predicting for quite some time that Labor would run a dirty and grubby and personal mudslinging campaign. I've been saying that for weeks and weeks in this place, but I have to say they brought it on early. They saved up all this kind of dirt until the last few weeks of the last election, and we saw all types of claims made and CCC referrals made, trumped up CCC referrals made, and all types of mud slung around in the last few weeks of the campaign. But you know what? They've dropped any pretense of being a credible opposition with policies or a vision, and they've gone straight to the dirt, straight away, far earlier than they have before. And I think we can just expect more of this, more personal attacks, more mud, and you know, the more desperate they get, the lower they go. And it is really disappointing, but sadly, it is predictable. And I have been predicting this because they have had opportunity after opportunity to put forward policies, to put forward an alternative agenda. And in fact, we've said it multiple times, again and again in this place, yet they've come up with nothing. They've come up with absolutely nothing. And that's not going to change. They will just, in this campaign, be wreckers rather than builders. And it is disappointing, but as I said, it was predicted, and we will see far more of it to come. So I only wonder what they'll stoop to next week, what other attacks they will come up with next week. But, you know, sometimes you've got to see the funny side in this, because it was amusing to see they were, you know, through their Labor Party headquarters, were having a crack at the Qantas Club memberships that council chairs get access to. And, you know, once again, just a sign that they've got nothing to offer, because they were all happy with the Qantas Club memberships when they were in administration. They were all happy with it, and they were all the biggest travellers. They actually needed the Qantas Club memberships because they were the biggest travellers this city has ever seen. And as usual, when we have a look at what they're having a crack at and you find out where it came from, it all goes back to Labor. These are all things that they started, just like the salary and allowances that they raised concerns about. It dates back to the Labor administration. And so I asked someone to have a look at when the first record of a Qantas Club membership was. Like, when did this start? Number one pass holder, Lord Mayor Jim Sooley. Number one Qantas Club pass holder, Lord Mayor Jim Sooley. And so... look, Labor's running a campaign to end their own so-called rorts. It's like, we brought it in and we're going to stop it, just trust us. You know,
Okay, righto, councillors. Councillors, you've made your point. Yeah, everyone's had their fun, all sides. Allow the Lord Mayor to speak in silence. Lord Mayor.
So we will just continue to see more of it. But I give the people of Brisbane a commitment that every time a Labor lie pops up, it's going to be a game of whack-a-mole. We're going to slap it down and expose the truth, because the people of Brisbane deserve to know the truth. They deserve to know what will happen if they actually vote for this mob, which is they will say and do anything to get elected. They will say and do anything to get into power, and then once their snouts get into the trough, they will be drinking freely. They will be drinking freely.
Righto, okay, everyone's had their fun. Back to silence. No, Lord Mayor, wait until Councillor Cook stops laughing. Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, please begin.
Councillor Cook seems to think this whole thing is a joke. And, look, at the time, I mean, I understand that there are some things in this place.
I've named you a few times now and asked you to control yourself. Councillor Cook, I direct you to cease interjecting, and if you do not comply with my direction, you will be warned. Lord Mayor, please continue.
I understand there are some things in this place that are amusing, but Councillor Cook just doesn't have good timing. I remember the last time she was laughing out loud was when I was giving a statement about the fact that I'd contracted Bell's palsy. She thought that was a great joke. And you know what? I didn't believe my ears at the time, but, you know, she continues.
Okay, righto. Councillor Cook, I hereby warn you that unless you cease interjecting, you may be suspended for a period of up to 8 days. Furthermore, Councillor Cook, if you are suspended, you must immediately leave this place and must remain away from all meeting places for the period of the suspension. Lord Mayor, please continue.
Now, moving on, we will continue to highlight and expose Labor's untruths. We will continue to highlight their dishonest campaigns. They thought they could get away with it at the federal level with Mediscare. What a morally bankrupt campaign that was. And you know what? Mediscare's got nothing on what this mob are going to do at the next council election, because there is no credibility to anything they say. And history shows that all of the things they are now supposedly outraged about, they brought in and they were happy with. And they were happy with it, not just, 20 years ago. They were happy with it until about a few weeks ago, actually. They were happy with it all until a few weeks ago, and it is the obvious sign of desperation. Now, while Labor's been busy working out what personal attacks and what mud to throw, this administration has been busy building infrastructure, opening new facilities for the people of Brisbane, letting people know about the new programs that are available to them. And another example of Labor hypocrisy is the way that they all squeal when we tell residents about what council is doing. And we tell residents about the great initiatives that are available to them. And they really don't like it for some reason if my face appears on something, yet there's certain councillors here that are quite happy to have 13 pictures of themselves in one newsletter. And the hypocrisy is incredible. Now, the last time I checked, there were over 1.1 million residents in Brisbane, and Labor has made a big song and dance about how apparently there's been 4 million pictures of me distributed. Well, by that measure, each resident in Brisbane may have seen my face 4 times. Yet residents in Councillor Cook's ward, in the small number of people that she represents, in one newsletter saw 12 pictures of her, saw her face 12 times, yet that's okay. And they want you to believe that, oh, that's not ratepayers' money we're talking about here. Well, yes, it is. Yes, it is. That is ratepayers' money. And actual information. And Councillor Cook was so excited about getting her face out there and so obsessed with getting the face out, she spelt the word councillor wrong on her newsletter. Yes, it was a typo. 2 photos on the front page, but she can't spell councillor right.
Councillor Cook, I've taken you to the boundary of. Please, Councillor Cook, please control yourself. And Councillor Hammond, you also please control yourself. Lord Mayor.
Thank you. It was great to be with Councillor McLaughlin, Councillor Adam Allen, Councillor Fiona Hammond out at the end of Racecourse Road at Ascot Park on the weekend, opening up a new facility for the people of that part of Brisbane, talking to residents, and there were hundreds of people there, including many local businesses from Racecourse Road that had set up stalls there. And contrary to the mistruths we hear peddled from the opposition, not one person on Sunday raised a concern with me along the lines that Councillor Cassidy brought up. Not one person. And the same thing goes to the Small Business Forum a few weeks back in the same area. Now, we understand that businesses across Brisbane, particularly small businesses, are facing challenges due to a tough retail sector and due to economic conditions that are beyond all of their control. And it is easy for some people, like Councillor Cassidy, to try and blame council for every problem when it comes to small business. But we know that that is not the truth. We know there are a range of circumstances here that are affecting the viability of small businesses. And there are parts of Brisbane where there are no major projects going on where small business is struggling, which is why we are doing our best across the city to implement initiatives and programs that support small business and help them grow and prosper. And we are doing our part. We are reducing our fees. We are giving them a leg up, particularly when it comes to things like our local procurement policy. We are doing more than any administration has done to support small business, and we will continue to do that because we care and we know how tough small business can be. And we don't want to use small business as a political football like Labor is trying to do, but we want to build the infrastructure and get the projects done because that is the right thing to do for the future of our city. But it was also good as well on the weekend to be out with Councillor Marks in
Lord Mayor,
Runcorn.
your time has expired.
Chair, I move for an extension of time.
Seconded.
An extension of time has been moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Marks. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Lord Mayor, please continue.
Thank you. As I was saying, it was great to be out with Councillor Marks at Runcorn, at the Runcorn pool, where we just opened the new Runcorn splash pool, a great asset for local residents, opened in the lead up to summer when it will get its maximum use. And once again, an example of this administration investing out in the suburbs, upgrading facilities that people want to see us upgrade, that people will benefit from, that people will use. And it was also great to be with Councillor Maddock at the Milton Common, a brand new park right in the heart of the Milton growth area, which we just opened on the weekend, and which we received an incredibly positive response from local residents on. These are the things that we are doing right across the city. These are the things that people expect from us as a council. These are the type of things they expect us to spend our time and invest ratepayers' money on, and that's what we will continue to do. We will be focused on what is important to the people of Brisbane, not what is important when it comes to winning elections or playing political games. And it was great to be out with Councillor Mackay at Anzac Park, right near the end of right near the Toowong roundabout, where council, after a program of several years, has re-established an incredible avenue of honour to represent our fallen soldiers and also the women who have served for our country as well. And so it was good to be out there for an incredibly moving and important ceremony just the other day to unveil that new avenue of honour. And it is part of a program that we've got across the city of upgrading and restoring memorials and avenues, and that is something that once again is based on community feedback. People see value in, and this is the type of thing that we will continue to do across the city. Moving to the item in front of us, item B, the Lord Mayor's Community Sustainability and Environmental Grants Program. Once again, practical support that we are providing to people who are making a difference in our community, people who are caring for the environment. And this includes things like the native wildlife grants for people or organisations that are involved in the rehabilitation and releasing of orphaned, sick and injured native wildlife in the Brisbane City Council area. And we've seen a number of examples recently of during the koala breeding season, where koalas are out and about in many parts of the city, often end up in people's yards or actually in people's houses, looking for a mate. And these carers do an incredibly important job. They come and they know how to handle these animals safely. They make sure that the animals are healthy, and if they are healthy, they release them back into an appropriate bushland reserve. So we're seeing funding ranging from $200 to $5,000, and the granting of over $60,000 to 23 different carers and wildlife organisations. Some of the funding will help carers pay for the mileage to drive to collect injured injured animals, cages for the injured wildlife, and also includes a grant to Wildcare Australia, who has proposed for the printing of a manual which ensures the best practice for the rehabilitation of native wildlife species. We also have the Cultivating Community Gardens grant program, which provides funding to local not-for-profit community-based groups and organisations to help establish and or maintain community gardens. Community gardens are growing ever popular across the city, and there's a great level of community support. They bring people together and also get people involved in gardening and growing their own food on a community basis, but also there's that issue of encouraging social interaction through the garden as well, which is just fantastic. Some of the grant recipients are doing amazing things, like the Wynnum Manly Community Gardens Group, installing colorbond garden beds to replace the deteriorated hardwood beds. The Graceful Community Garden will receive funding to purchase seeds, seedlings and other material, and a garden shade and garden shading for the Northey Street Farm is also included. I commend this particular item to the chamber.
Further speakers, Councillor Cassidy.
Well, thank you, Chair. I rise to speak on the only item that we can speak on in this portion of the ENC. And it was quite an interesting missive from the Lord Mayor earlier in his E&C opening saying that this administration is getting about the business of the city. They're doing all this work, and yet all we're debating is one grant program, which is a good grant program, and we support those grants being awarded to those organisations. And talking about New South Wales, of course, yeah. It's a bit of an own goal there, I think, isn't it? Politics 101, don't talk about your opponents, and then all this Lord Mayor has done, this entire meeting, is talk about his opponents in this place. So I think he's protesting a little too much when it comes to his rates rorts, Chair, to his rates rorts. He finds himself...
Councillor Cassidy, the rules actually don't allow you to go this far, ranging quite so far. I've allowed a little bit of it, but please get back on topic.
So item B. So the Brisbane City Council, which has 10,000 employees doing any number of thousands and thousands of jobs out there in the community, or these major infrastructure projects, including the ones that are a complete and utter debacle, like Kingston Smith Drive. So we have this enormous organisation, and what we're debating here today, Chair, and the Lord Mayor spent, I don't know, 30, 35 seconds talking about this item just now, these environment grants, of which we support. So I suppose that's about all we can say. Can't talk about anything else. So we support this item. We'd love to continue to talk about major issues that are facing this city at the moment, but they don't bring them to council, Chair. They don't bring them to council. They hide them behind cabinet secrecy, but you just wait a couple of weeks. Just wait a couple of weeks, and the people of Brisbane will really know what this administration has been up to, Chair.
Further speakers. Councillor Richards.
Mr Chair, I move that Council now adjourn for afternoon tea for 15 minutes, which commences only when all councillors have vacated the chamber and the doors have been locked.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Second.
Point of order, Councillor Shree.
The meeting started at 2:30 and it's not even 4 o'clock yet, so I'm surprised we're going to lunch to tea early.
I have a resolution, but Councillor Richards, typically we would go at 4:30. Would you mind withdrawing your resolution and coming back at 4:30?
Yes, I withdraw the resolution then.
Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I rise to speak on item B, and it saddens me that the Leader of the Opposition could dig more dirt, throw more mud on something, a grant program that helps so many of the Brisbane residents.
Point of order, Councillor Cassidy.
Claim to be misrepresented.
Noted. Continue, Councillor Hammond, please.
He spoke about everything else that's going on in this city except for what's on the item, and the item here is about the community grants that have come out to help people of Brisbane, across Brisbane, and people who do the most beautiful work for our native animals, and recognising them for their the free time that they give up to help our sick and sometimes dying animals across our city. Mr Chair, I'm going to start on the first of the grants, which is the Cultivating community grants, which supports communities and non-for-profit organisations who are working to build Brisbane better lifestyle through community gardens. Community gardens can sometimes be a very tough balancing act. As we know in this chamber, some of the areas in yesteryear of Brisbane, in the early days of Brisbane, the community filled in some of our waterways areas and gullies to create public spaces for sporting fields and parks. This sometimes causes issues with community gardens that we have across our city right now, and we are working with those community gardens and helping them manage the issues that are out there. It was great to be able to help organisations such as Nunda Community Support Group to buy new equipment, the PA Research Foundation to construct a family-friendly Gabaguru Green Garden health space. I love that. The Active Refugee and Migrant Group that will use the grant to replenish the plants and buy new equipment, Councillor Marks, which I know you're very supportive of. There are so many amazing organisations that receive funding for the community grant, community garden, that I'd run out of time if I listed them all. The grants for the native wildlife carer, which we heard the opposition leader condemn because it's not important to those opposite to support these people, which is deeply upsetting, and I'm sure deeply upsetting for the people across Brisbane who are very interested in this vital, important project. Our hard-working carers, let me say that again, our hard-working carers are the front line of keeping our biodiversity city thriving and the amazing wildlife. While this funding round was oversubscribed, I'd like to take a moment to highlight some of the successful recipients. A carer, this one touches my heart, a carer was successful for a grant for humidity crib for the rehabilitations of possums and micropods. This one might be a little bit controversial, but there is for bats, and the rescue was successful for a grant to help with medicine and proposed training to support the rehabilitations of flying fox and microbats. And finally, a lot of the grant funding went on mileage, as the Lord Mayor said, for the carers. These carers keep books, keep receipts on how many travelling hours that they do, how many kilometres and how much it costs them. I would like to thank all the community groups from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work that you've done across this city to make us more clean and green, and also to protect our beautiful wildlife that are sometimes in our backyards that need the help. So thank you.
Further speakers? Councillor Shree.
Thanks, Mr Chair. I rise to speak on item B, and of course I'm very supportive of this program, but my concern is that the total amount of funding available to community groups is woefully inadequate. And I'd like to particularly draw my comments to the attention of the Mayor, but also the Chair of Infrastructure, Chair of Finance, who tend to pull a lot of the strings in terms of the very big chunks of the council budget. And it's important to understand that the community groups that are receiving these grants deliver a huge amount of value to the city. For every dollar we put in, we get literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of volunteer labour. Those are volunteers who are doing work that arguably maybe the council should be doing itself and should be paying people a fair wage to do. But there's a real opportunity here in our city where we can and should be supporting these community groups more to be able to restore the natural environment, to care for wildlife, to revegetate and to cultivate urban farms. And I think it's a shame that in total, we're only giving less than $100,000 to these community groups via this grants program. That's a very, very small amount of money. When I think about how much we've spent on road widening projects, when I think about the fact that even a single set of traffic lights can cost as much as $5 million, it's pretty disappointing that we're giving so little money to these sustainability and environmental grants. And I think if this council administration was genuine in its claims that it cares about the environment, it's a clean, green and sustainable council, it would be putting far more money into this program. This is, considering this quantum of the council's budget, it's almost embarrassing, really. And I don't say that as an attack on any one councillor or any particular political party, but it's just a clear reminder to me that we need to shift our political priorities. And I hope that the Labor Party, if they were to get in after March next year, or that the LNP, if they're still running the budget in the lead up to the middle of next year, that both the major parties will seriously consider a significant increase to this grants program. I'm not just talking about increasing it by a few percentage points, but I'm suggesting that we should be putting literally millions of dollars into these grant programs, because the value that the city receives in terms of environmental infrastructure, in terms of value to the city as a whole, is substantial. And I think it's just a bit disrespectful and disappointing to the community groups that there's so little money available for them. I think there's, as I said, a big opportunity here. There's a real need for more work and for more volunteers to be involved in environmental restoration and urban farming projects. and a little bit of money will go a very, very long way. So I know it might seem like the total funding applications were only in the realm of 120K. That's because the groups know how much money is out there, and they know that how competitive it is. But I'm sure that if we were to increase that budget allocation and offer more money, we'd see some significantly more applications and a lot of great new project ideas coming forwards. And so I urge the Mayor, I urge the Deputy Mayor, and particularly the Chair of Infrastructure, who understands the importance of funding for these kinds of projects, to think carefully about whether any more money could be directed towards this grants program in future years. Thanks.
Further speakers? There being none, I'll put the resolution for item B. All those in favour of item B say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Lord Mayor, to item A, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to declare a conflict of interest in relation to Clause A. I note that parties on both sides of the chamber have received political donations from the recommended tenderer. I am a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Pty Ltd, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy on the Mall Pty Ltd, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Richards.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Pty Ltd, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Marx.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Pty Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Mackay.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Davis.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Murphy.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of interest, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Abwood.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Pty Ltd, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order,
Point
Mr.
of order,
Chair.
Councillor Huang.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Landers.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Cunningham.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr.
Point
Chairman.
of order, Councillor Matic.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Hammond.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Pty Ltd, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr
Point of
Chair.
order, Councillor Howard.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Allen.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Pty Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor McLaughlin.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I am a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Toomey.
I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017.
I also declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Pty Ltd, made a donation to the Liberal National Party of Queensland of $1,808.90 in August 2017. Are there any other conflicts of interest that need to be declared in relation to this matter?
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Chair. I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Queensland branch of the Australian Labor Party. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Pty Ltd, made a donation to the Australian Labor Party State of Queensland as follows: $6,052 in August 2017. Further, the Mantle Group, who owns Jimmy's, donated $1,760 in June 2016 to the Australian Labor Party State of Queensland.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Cook.
I declare a conflict of interest in relation to Clause A. I'm a member of the Queensland branch of the Australian Labor Party. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Australian Labor Party State of Queensland of $6,052 in August 2017. Further, the Mantle Group, who owns Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, donated $1,760 in June 2016 to the Australian Labor Party State of Queensland.
Point of order.
Point of order, Councillor Griffiths.
I need to declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. A member of the Queensland branch of the Australian Labor Party. The recommended tenderer, Jimmy's on the Mall Proprietary Limited, made a donation to the Australian Labor Party State of Queensland as follows: $6,052 in August 2017. Further, the Mantle Group, who owns Jimmy's, donated $1,760 in June 2016 to the Australian Labor Party Queensland branch.
Thanks, Mr Chair. I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the
Councillor Cumming.
Sorry.
Point of order to you, Councillor Cumming.
Yes.
Yep, go for it.
Thank you. Sorry. Point of order. I declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Queensland branch of the Australian Labor Party. The recommended lessee of the cafe and restaurant at Mount Cootha, Jimmy's on the Mall, Pty Ltd, Jimmy's, made a donation to the Australian Labor Party State of Queensland as follows: $6,052 in August 2017. Further, the Mantle Group, who owns Jimmy's, donated $1,760 in June 2016 to the Australian Labor Party State of Queensland.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Strunk.
Yes, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest in Clause A. I'm a member of the Australian Labor Party Queensland. The recommended lessee of the cafe and restaurant at Mount Cootha, Jimmy's on the Mall, made a donation to the Australian Labor Party Queensland as follows: $6,052 in August 2017.
Further, the Mantle Group, who owns Jimmy's, donated $1,760 in June 2016 to the Australian Labor Party, Queensland.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Sri.
Do you think it would be better for democracy if political parties just stopped taking corporate donations?
No, point of
from
order.
businesses?
Thank you, mate. All right. Lord Mayor, as a majority of councillors present have declared a conflict of interest in the matter, may I please have a motion about the delegation of this matter to the relevant delegate in accordance with Section 238 of the City of Brisbane Act 2010.
Mr. Chair, I move that this council resolve that as a majority of councillors present have declared a conflict of interest in this matter, deciding this matter be delegated to the Chief Executive Officer in accordance with Section 238 of the City of Brisbane Act 2010.
Seconded.
It's been moved by the Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Richards, that as a majority of councillors present have declared a conflict of interest in this matter, Council resolve that deciding this matter must be delegated to the Chief Executive Officer in accordance with Section 238 of the City of Brisbane Act 2010. Is there any debate, Lord Mayor?
Yes, just briefly, obviously we are meeting our legislative obligations here. And as I mentioned last week, there is rightly debate about whether this is good legislation or not, whether this is reasonable or not. But ultimately, this is what we are required to do, and we're all trying to do the right thing here. But I can tell you, based on my experience in council, now being a councillor for 14 years, a donation to a party of $1,800 is not going to affect my decision-making in any way. And I don't know about anyone else, but like seriously, the idea, I mean, there's 20 of us on this side of the chamber. That works out to about $90 each if you put it into each different campaign account, theoretically. That is not going to affect decision-making. The reality is, like I pointed out last week, that we are the only level of government that doesn't have public funding for our elections. State and federal elections are funded by taxpayers in the main. And yes, they do seek and receive donations as well, but a big chunk of the costs associated with the democratic process are funded by the taxpayers. We do not have that system in Brisbane City Council. We do not have that system in Queensland local government, which means that if there's going to be a campaign, then it has to be funded through donations. That's the reality. Now, would it be a democratic process if we didn't have an election campaign? No, it wouldn't. So the election campaign has to be funded somehow. And in this case, as there is no public funding, both sides of politics, or all candidates, seek donations. Now, Councillor Sri loves to grandstand on this issue, but his party was the recipient of the largest donation in Australian political history, the largest corporate donation. And in fact, it was a corporate donation from a company that sells carbon emissions. It sells travel around the world. What if? Everyone remember What If? That is a donation based on carbon emissions, encouraging people to travel around the world and burn carbon. The Greens were quite happy to take that large donation. I think it was over $1 million from memory, and now they're all against it. So we know hypocrisy when we see it. And even Councillor Johnston, I remember Councillor Johnston, who used to be a member of this team, got elected on the back of political donations. So whatever she might say now, she wouldn't be here without the support of those political donations. Ultimately, whether you like this situation or not, we are doing our best to make sure we do the right thing and comply with the legislation. It may well be ludicrous and unworkable legislation, but ultimately we have to do our best. I would also point out that the requirements on councillors are far stricter than the requirements on state government MPs. And in fact, the Deputy Premier would probably be in jail now if she was a councillor. There's certainly not the same standards at the state government level. And while the state government loves to try and interfere in councils, they don't like any kind of changes to their own level of government that might bring things into line. So I'd simply point that out as we move forward in this.
Further speakers? Councillor Shree.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm definitely seeing a pattern here. I must say I'm glad that we do have this legislation, and I think it's perfectly reasonable and necessary and appropriate that councillors do declare their conflicts of interest. I only wish this legislation had been in effect sooner, because it would have shown that many of the decisions which have been made by this chamber in recent years have been tainted by possible conflicts of interest. And I hear the mayor suggesting that that might be rubbish, but it's a fact that this council has made dozens of decisions over the years that may potentially benefit donors of the major parties. I don't think that's controversial or up for dispute. That's a matter of the public record. We can see the companies that have donated to the Labor and Liberal parties, and we can see the companies that have benefited from council decisions, whether those are developers or tenderers for council contracts, or companies that have taken leases over council properties. And here again, we have an example where a well-connected donor has made donations to both the major parties, and now these councillors are having to absent themselves from the decision. And I think it's good that they're not making the decision, because they are tainted by that conflict of interest. But it's disappointing that they're now not able to represent the will of the people. The people have elected them to make decisions about the future of the city, and instead that decision-making is being outsourced to an unelected public servant. That's not really a great process going forward long term. We don't really want a situation where all the big decisions that shape our city are being made by people who aren't democratically accountable. But if political parties take so many corporate donations from companies that stand to benefit from council decisions, that's going to keep happening. I heard the mayor make some suggestion that the legislation might be ludicrous, or that this process is a bit silly. I think it's perfectly appropriate and reasonable to require councillors to declare these conflicts of interest. But if councillors in this chamber feel that it's annoying or inconvenient that they have to stand up and repeatedly declare all these donations and all these conflicts, then maybe their party shouldn't be taking these business donations in the first place. It was interesting to see how defensive the LNP is becoming about this issue, because they know it's a bad look, and it's a bad look for the entire political establishment. It corrodes faith in democracy when parties take political donations. And I agree with the mayor that it would be nice to see that these council elections got a bit of public funding. But I understand that the LNP has argued against that at the state level. So before we start throwing around accusations of hypocrisy, it might be good to reflect on the fact that the mayor in this chamber seems to be at odds with his own state party colleagues' policy position on public funding and donations. So,
claim to be misrepresented, Mr. Chair.
Yep, noted, recorded.
Sure, I'm happy to withdraw a statement if the mayor took offence or I hurt his feelings in any way. But the core of the problem here, the core of the problem here is that political parties are taking donations which then create a real or perceived conflict of interest. Now, the mayor pointed out that it might seem odd that parties could be bought so cheaply, that a single $1,800 donation, or I think it was, in the Labor Party's case, it was $6,000 donations. That's quite a lot of money in my opinion, but anyway, that a donation of those amounts could buy a decision that's potentially worth millions of dollars to a particular business. But what's important to understand about donations is that they're not necessarily a direct bribe. And I'm not here seriously suggesting that when a company makes a donation to a political party, that's a quid pro quo direct bribe in exchange for political favour. But what those donations do is they buy access to the political establishment. The exchange of donations through events and through fundraising opportunities creates opportunities where lobbyists and business representatives get more access to our political decision makers than ordinary residents of Brisbane do. Not every resident is going to get invited to those corporate fundraisers. Not every resident is going to shake the hands of the mayor or the party's chief fundraiser or whoever it is that they're building those relationships with at the time that they're seeking donations. At some point, those donors have had extra contact with the relevant political parties by virtue of the donations they're making. And so the problem with donations is not necessarily that they're a direct bribe, but that they buy more access than is available to ordinary members of the public. I'd be interested to know from the Lord Mayor, and he might not be able to answer this question, whether he's actually had many personal conversations with Mr. Mantle or other reps from Jimmy's. Because there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of residents across Brisbane who will never get the opportunity to have a meeting with the Mayor, and who will never get the opportunity to have a proper, meaningful conversation, perhaps beyond briefly shaking hands or nodding hello at a public event. Yet certain business owners, certain well-connected elites, get far more access than the ordinary members of our society. And it is the political donations that grease the wheels of that machine. It's those donations that help buy access and privilege certain members of society over the rest of us. So while the Mayor might find it strange that an $1,800 donation is seen as problematic, it's certainly seen as problematic by members of the public. Residents out there understand that businesses don't donate to political parties out of the goodness of their hearts. They do it because they're getting something in return. And too often, and the research demonstrates this, we've seen even economists here in Queensland have demonstrated that political donations buy access to an elite club, a network of influence, which tends to result in political decisions which favour those businesses that are well connected to political decision makers. That is a serious problem with our democracy in this city and in this state. And it's great that we're at least declaring these conflicts of interest now, but we need to go a lot further and ban political parties from accepting these business donations altogether. Otherwise, every decision this council makes is going to be tainted by that perceived conflict and by that lack of trust in the political process. And as I said at the start, it's not satisfactory long term that every time a decision is being made relevant to an entity that's donated to a political party, that we have to all the councillors in here, other than myself and maybe Councillor Johnston, have to absent themselves from the chamber. We don't want a situation where big decisions are being made by unelected public servants who aren't democratically accountable.
Point of order, Chair.
Point of order to you, Councillor Murphy.
Just a question of clarification and guidance. I mean, we might have more of these conflicts of interest in this place. Are we required to get a lecture on corporate donations every single time we do this? Is that relevant to the debate, or is the item itself
thank you,
more relevant? I just want some clarification.
Yeah, please don't use points of order to debate. Look, Councillor Sri, as I say, there is a resolution in front of us about whether we should delegate this matter to the CEO or not.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
You've made your feelings known. The objective is always of this organisation to comply with the law. We will comply with the law. I expect that this will not be your last opportunity to give us your view on this. So, please be mindful.
Sure. No, I won't drag it out, and I respect the views of the chamber, although I would note that you allowed the Mayor a great deal of leeway to talk at length about the donations disclosure scheme in general.
I've also allowed you a great deal of leeway as well.
That's fine. Yeah,
quite frankly, more than 7 minutes of it. So please show some courtesy when it's shown to you.
I'm perfectly entitled to speak for 10 minutes. I'm not going to do that.
When I'm allowing your courtesy. Further debate? Sorry, Lord Mayor, misrepresentation.
Yes, quite clearly, when I was talking about my concerns about this, the concern that I have is ultimately that we are forced to delegate this to a public official as opposed to debating it here in the chamber. And I was simply pointing out that I don't believe I actually have a conflict of interest here. However, the law says that I have to declare one.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Is there further debate? That being done, Lord Mayor. I'll now put the... Yep.
Yes. Just in relation to touch on a couple of issues. Now, Councillor Sri asked the question, what discussions I had with the recommended tenderer, and the answer is none. None. And then the claims that were made about access. I mean, when I turn up to the parks and the shopping centres around Brisbane, people don't have to pay to come and talk to me. It's just a ludicrous suggestion that somehow people have to pay to come and talk to an elected official. I mean, it is absolutely ludicrous. On the weekend up at Ascot Park, people didn't have to pay to come and talk to Councillor McLaughlin and myself. Anyone can come up and talk to us about any issue. But I can tell you, if I'm aware that someone's in the middle of a tender process, I certainly don't talk to them about that tender.
Point of order,
Mr. Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Sri.
Will the Mayor take a question?
May we take a question?
Sure.
Yes, he will.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to clarify, your description was a little bit ambiguous. Have you ever had a private meeting with Mr. Mantle or any of the business owners involved in that tender?
Lord Mayor.
I was actually just answering that. If I'm aware that someone's involved in a tender process with council, I most certainly won't meet with them. That's the rule of thumb that I use. Now, occasionally you bump into people in functions and at events, and these are not, this is not pay for access or anything like that. But I make a point of making sure that I don't talk about current tenders. That is what we should all do as councillors. Now, when it comes to this particular one, I absolutely didn't talk to any of the tenderers. And any tender processes that are underway, I make a point of not referring in any way to a tender that is underway. And we should all do that. We should all be aware of what's out to tender. I know there's a lot out at any one time, but certainly if you're aware of a tender process and someone approaches you about an open or ongoing tender, you definitely shouldn't talk about it with that person. You should refer them through to the council officers in the procurement unit. That is the appropriate and right thing to do. That's what I expect of my team, and I would expect all councillors to do the same thing. The reality is here, and let me be very clear. Councillor Sri is trying to suggest that somehow something improper is happening. It couldn't be further from the truth. We're actually doing the right thing here. We're doing what is required by law. We're doing the right thing. We're declaring that a political donation was made, and not just to us, the Labor Party declared donations have been made to their side as well. But when decisions come through, by the time they get to this chamber, they've already been recommended by the council officers. So what we have here is a recommendation that's put forward. Now, we're not allowed to debate this recommendation, but the procurement process is done at arm's length from all councillors, and that includes Cabinet as well. And so we receive recommendations from officers. We don't get involved in the nitty-gritty of procurement, but ultimately we should have the right to debate procurement, and that's what we're being denied today because of state government requirements. So a better situation would be, well, yes, we might have to make a declaration or declare a conflict of interest, but ultimately, if that's on the public record, then maybe we should still get the opportunity to debate the issue with the public knowing that there's a declaration that's been made. That would be a transparent situation, but that would still allow public debate. But right now, because of the state requirements, we are not allowed to debate this. We're not allowed to talk about it. And any suggestion that that's us trying to shut down debate is rubbish. That is the state government legislation. We don't have a choice here. So there are better ways this can work. We could talk for a long time about this, but we are doing the right thing. This is the appropriate thing. The procurement process for this particular issue has been handled by council officers. There's a recommendation that was put on the paper to us, but we're not allowed to debate that. That's the status of where we are today. And for my part, I certainly haven't talked to any of the tenderers, and I don't believe that would be appropriate to do, and I'll make it an ongoing practice not to do that.
I now put the resolution that this matter be referred to the CEO. Excuse me, I just want to make sure that we use the correct form. All right, the resolution that this matter be delegated to the Chief Executive Officer in accordance with the Section 238 of the City of Brisbane Act 2010. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillor Marx.
Yes, thank you, Mr Chair. I move that Council now adjourn for afternoon tea for 15 minutes, which commences only when all councillors have vacated the chamber and the doors have been locked.
Seconded. I have a resolution moved by Councillor Marx, seconded by Councillor Burke, that this council now adjourn for the purpose of afternoon tea for a period of 15 minutes, commencing when all councillors have vacated the chamber and the doors have been locked. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. everybody. The Public and Active Transport, Economic and Tourism Development Committee report, please. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I move that the report of the Public and Active Transport, Economic and Tourism Development Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 29th of October 2019 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Mackay. The report of the Public and Active Transport, Economic and Tourism Development Committee meeting dated Tuesday the 29th of October 2019 be adopted. Is there any debate? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. Last week's presentation at committee was on green initiatives within Transport for Brisbane. Council's Transport Department has in place a number of initiatives to reduce our carbon emissions so we can keep Brisbane clean, green and sustainable. In 2017, a training program called Eco Drive was carried out at Virginia Bus Depot. The program encouraged bus drivers to change their driving habits to reduce emissions coming from our buses. Great practical results have been achieved through this program. Additionally, Council has also installed a total of 400 kilowatts of solar panels on our depots at Toowong and Carina, with a further 500 kilowatts in the pipeline to be installed. For context, one 100 kilowatt system generates approximately 152 megawatt hours, saving Council around $20,000 each year. We are also in the middle of the procurement process for the electric bus trial, which will operate in the City Loop, on the City Loop. A contract is expected to be awarded in mid-2020. We also had a petition requesting Council relocate the bus stop at 90 White Street, Wavell Heights, to opposite Wavell Heights State School, Edinburgh Castle Road, Wavell Heights, and install a pedestrian crossing and introduce road calming. Mr Chair, I'll leave debate to the chamber, but on indulgence, I'd like to provide a quick update to the chamber on the Seniors Free Travel Initiative. I've had fantastic feedback from seniors in my local area who are very appreciative of the scheme, and we've had some early reports that patronage has increased and many seniors are making use of the free travel. Of course, this scheme is only possible because of the way that we have balanced the council books over many years. But the question that I'm getting more often is why not trains? Why not trains? So we have a petition circulating around the City Chair at the moment, and I would encourage all councillors to support it.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Murphy.
Will Councillor Davis take a question?
Councillor Davis, will you take a question?
Yes.
Yep. Councillor Murphy, please proceed.
Councillor Davis, are you aware of any opposition councillors out there who are plugging the hell out of free off-peak travel for seniors in their wards?
Please don't use profanities like that in the future, Councillor Murphy, but Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Murphy, and indeed I have. No. And it really goes to the height of hypocrisy of the Labor Party, which reaches new levels week after week after week. They are the masters of hypocrisy. I think they can take that title. In fact, I think they could have a doctorate in hypocrisy. And Councillor Cook has proven this with flying colours. It appears that the Deputy Leader of the Opposition is not lockstep in with her leader. The Australian Labor Party have spent, as you know, the last month trashing our Brisbetter campaign. But yesterday we found out that Councillor Cook has taken the liberty of using the Brisbetter collateral in her newsletter to seniors. You can ignore the typos. You can ignore the incorrect times that are listed for the off-peak travel. But you can't ignore, Chair, you can't ignore the artwork on page 3.
Point of order, Mr Chair.
Point of order, Councillor Strunk.
Yes, I believe I've been misrepresented.
Okay.
Not you.
Councillor Strunk, I'll note your misrepresentation. Councillor Davis, please continue.
Well, thank you, Chair. And this is the artwork that Councillor Cook loves to criticise this. It's artwork that's paid for by Council, which the councillor continues to trash. And, you know, there are some lovely photos of the councillor in this particular brochure as well. And she's also plugging Team Schrinner policy, which is fantastic because the seniors policy is a fantastic policy.
Nothing else.
But, Chair, you know, we're running out of room on our coattails for the Labor Party to fit on. So I think, Chair, instead of confecting outrage, and then doing the exact opposite of what they pledge. They should just come clean with residents, because it's okay to tell them that they have no policy of their own and that they have no plan for this city.
Councillor Strunk, you have a misrepresentation. Please do not use it as an opportunity. You could have spoken to this as a normal presentation, but please limit your comments to the misrepresentation alone.
Yes, the councillor said that she wasn't aware of any opposition councillors that were actually promoting the off-peak scheme for seniors, and that is not correct. I have been, and I have done through Facebook, if she would care to look it up.
Okay, thank you. All right, further speakers? There being none, Councillor Davis. I will now put the report. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillor McLaughlin, the Infrastructure Committee report, please.
Well, thank you, Mr Chair. I move that the report of the Infrastructure Committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 29th of October 2019 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor McLaughlin, seconded by Councillor Huang, that the report of the Infrastructure Committee meeting dated Tuesday, the 29th of October 2019 be adopted. Is there any debate? Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Before I go to the order of business before us in this committee report, I just want to return to early discussion about Kingsford Smith Drive, if I may, now that I'm the Chair of Infrastructure and responsible for delivery of that project. And there was discussion about issues arising from retail conditions, the retail situation for many small retailers. There's no doubt about that. But, Mr Chair, there are many on Racecourse Road, and I talked to many again on Sunday at the opening of the new Ascot Park, who said this has been their best year ever. So it is variable. But one of the issues that had an absolute impact on Racecourse Road traders was the 3-year closure of Eagle Farm Racetrack. That had a profound effect on businesses on the street. Very pleased that the racetrack is now operating again, but that period of time when the racetrack was closed did have a big impact on businesses on the strip. There was also the issue with one private property car park that was being used as a honey trap car park for a business that was essentially towing vehicles away and then charging the owners of the vehicles to get them back. And that also had a big impact on the conditions of the nearby traders. But I did go to this issue of the impact of the temporary closures that have occurred from time to time of the entry into Racecourse Road from Kingsford Smith Drive. And I was very keen to see whether some of the things that were being said could be replicated with the statistics. And I'm happy to table this, Mr Chair. This is a graph of Racecourse Road traffic at the traffic lights at the end of Racecourse Road at Lancaster Road, and the comparison is between September 2018 and September 2019. And they show, Mr Chair, that the traffic volumes throughout the course of the average weekday traffic were essentially the same. So the claim that vehicles weren't able to find their way into Racecourse Road hasn't been verified by the actual statistics. There were diversions in place, well-advertised diversions in place that allowed traffic to get onto Racecourse Road. So the issues that relate to trading conditions for shops, I think, is a citywide issue. I don't think there are a set of strip shops anywhere in the city that doesn't have vacancies for lease signs in their windows. I'm pretty sure it's true of Oxford Street and Bulimba and other business locations as well. So I don't think it's fair of the Labor Party to stand up here and claim that this project that we've talked about, the Kingsford Smith Drive project, is solely and only responsible for the issues that relate to the trading conditions for businesses on Racecourse Road. I'm always happy to talk to Racecourse Road traders. They're the Racecourse Road business group, which is the business group that represents the majority of businesses on the road, can come and see me at any time, and they do, and we work collaboratively on issues that help the businesses on Racecourse Road. And I'm very pleased to say that the temporary closures into Racecourse Road from Kingsford Smith Drive that work will be finished in the next couple of weeks, and I certainly look forward to the opening of the revived and the renewed Brett's Wharf just across the road, which will mean that Racecourse Road is bookended by that fantastic precinct at Brett's Wharf and the new park, Ascot Park, at the other end. Mr Chair, to the committee presentation before us, we had a presentation last week on the anti-hooning trial. As was made clear in the presentation, Council works with the Queensland Police Service, the hard-working officers of the Queensland Police Service, wherever and whenever we can on this particular issue, because many of the issues that relate to the poor behaviour of drivers in hooning aren't issues that the council can impact directly, and it does require the QPS, the Queensland Police Service, to be involved, and we work collaboratively with them where we can. But the issue that we did implement, and the trial that we have implemented, is the use of roadway conditions, roadway materials, so the anti-hooning seal treatment. So this has been getting good press, I'm pleased to say. The story appeared in the local Southwest satellite, Willawong Hoons right out of luck, indeed they are, and which is good to see that the surface treatment that we're putting on these roads is impacting on the back pockets, the wallets of the hoons, because it strips their tyres. And there's if they drive in a straight line, they're fine, but if they do the donuts and hoon around, they strip their rubber off pretty quickly, and hopefully they'll realise that it's not in their best interest to continue that behaviour. And we'll continue to roll that out as trials where we can. This does work. I know from talking to other councillors across the city that there are other areas that we need to be looking at this. I've got an area in Pinkenbar which I would be nominating for this sort of road treatment as well, one particular intersection, but I know other councillors have told me of other locations as well. So we're happy to continue looking at how best we can contribute to improving the behaviour of badly behaved drivers. Mr Chair, there were a couple of petitions that related to areas in your ward. I think that they stand for themselves. If anybody wants to participate in that debate, I'm happy for them to do so. Otherwise, Mr Chair, I'll leave it at that point.
Further speakers? Councillor McLaughlin, you were tabling that note as well. Mr Pearce, could you please collect that note from Councillor McLaughlin? Councillor McLaughlin, did you want to respond? I'll now move that resolution. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillor Burke, the Planning Committee, please.
Thanks, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, I move the report of the City Planning Committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 29th of October 2019 be adopted.
Seconded, Mr Chairman.
It's been moved by Councillor Burke, seconded by Councillor Toomey, that the report of the City Planning Committee meeting dated Tuesday, the 29th of October 2019 be adopted. Is there any debate? Councillor Burke.
Thanks very much, Mr Chairman. Two items on the committee agenda last week. There was a committee presentation about Brisbane Open House and also a petition relating to Walker's Way at Nunda, Mr Chairman. I'm just going to deal with the petition first. This was an application that Council had assessed. The independent council officers who assess these development applications had decided to refuse this application. The applicant has then taken this application to court and it is currently still in the court process, Mr Chairman, and so the response back to the petitioners is outlined there for all to see, and we'll be continuing to take that matter through the court process. Mr Chairman, this year we've seen the 9th year of Brisbane Open House. In the 9 years that this fantastic program has been in place, some 420,000 visitors have gone to over 260 different buildings across our city to look at some of the best kept secrets in the city when it comes to architecture and buildings of interest. And this year, again, 119 buildings were opened up. There was 18 walking tours, 10 lectures and 16 after-dark sessions that were supported by fantastic work from not only the council officers but a number of non-for-profit organisations as well, Mr Chairman. There were tours through this building. There was tours through the Capitol, there was tours through the old windmill up at Spring Hill, the Spring Hill Baths, the Valley Baths, the Walter Taylor Bridge, Centenary Pool Complex, Anzac Square, the Museum of Brisbane, Wickham Terrace Car Park and the Brisbane Powerhouse, just to name a few. This is a fantastic collaborative effort, Mr Chairman, between ourselves and, as I said, those community groups and the state government to help open up these buildings and these particular pieces of interest for the residents of Brisbane to enjoy. There was special tours through some of the city's best green roofs as well, Mr Chairman, so that people could see firsthand some of the fantastic architecture and design that is being delivered in our city. There is also, as I said, those walking tours. They were both of a historical nature, but also those nighttime tours going through some of the fantastic City of Light projects that have been delivered, Mr Chairman, looking at the light boxes, the art projections, the street art, as well as other lighting installations across the CBD and into South Brisbane, Mr Chairman. It is a fantastic program. It does not organise itself, so I want to acknowledge and thank all the volunteers who put in so much time and effort, to all of the building owners who worked with the organisers to open up their facilities, those private facilities in particular. I want to say a very big thank you and encourage you to be a part of the program next year. And to all the council officers who put in so much hard work in delivering Brisbane Open House, I want to say a very big thank you, because it continues to go from success to success. And I know that this will continue well into the future as a great program and a great opportunity to highlight our great city, the fantastic architecture, the fantastic history and heritage that this city has, and a fantastic way of life that we have here in Brisbane, not just for locals but for tourists alike, Mr Chairman.
Further speakers? Councillor Burke. I now put the resolution. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillor Hammond, the Environment, Parks and Sustainability Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I move the report of the Environment, Parks and Sustainability Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 29th of October 2019 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Hammond, seconded by Councillor Richards. The report of the Environment, Parks and Sustainability Committee meeting dated Tuesday the 29th of October 2019 be adopted. Is there any debate? Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I'd like to start by thanking Councillor Richards for stepping in for me at the last minute to very ably take the committee of last week, which was on the Oxley Creek Transformation Project. And thank you to Nigel, the chair of the Oxley Creek Transformation Board, for coming into committee last week and updating us on this wonderful project. We also discussed, and I do have Park Envy, the naming of Ascot Park in Councillor McLaughlin's ward, and also a petition requesting for council to introduce a designated small dog off-leash area in Crosby Park, Albion. Mr Chair, I'd like to indulge, if I may, answer a question about the water harvesting committee report we had today to give the answer of the 29 parks, if I have time. Patel Park, Leywood Avenue, Barden, got above-ground tanks. Albert Bishop Park, Nudgee Road, Nunda, above-ground tanks. Burt Street, Clare Oval, Graceful Avenue, Graceful, above-ground tanks. Othello Park, Western Combe Street, Darra, above-ground tanks. Dunlop Park, Oxley Road, Corinda, above-road tanks. Bill Lomond Park, Andrew Street, Lota, above-ground tanks. Deagon Sportsfield Park, Racecourse Road, Deagon, above-ground tanks. Chelmer Park, Queenscroft Street, Chelmer, above-ground tanks. Wainda Picnic Ground Park at Wecker Road, Mansfield, above-ground tanks. Gibson Park, Stafford Road, Stafford, above-ground tanks. Bowman Park, Simpsons Road, Barden, above-ground tanks. Marchant Park, Murphy Road, Chermside, above-ground tanks. Dunmore Park, Lang Parade, Toowong, above-ground tanks. Bone Mill Road Park, Leopardwood Street, Runcorn, above-ground tanks. Cubberla Creek Soccer, Fig Tree Pocket, if I pronounce that incorrectly, my apologies, that's at Chapel Hill, above-ground tanks. Bulimba Memorial Park, Balmoral Street, Bulimba, above-ground tanks. Phillip Place Park, Warburton Close, Forest Lake, above-ground tanks. Darien Street Park, Darien Street, Bridgeman Downs, open water storage. Taralba Park, Mackawatt Street, is that right?
It's in
Mackawatt Street. Oh, sorry, Everton Park, above-ground tanks. Whites Hill Sport and Recreation Reserve, Boundary Road, Chapel Hill, open water storage. CB Mott Park, Logan Road, Holland Park, open water storage. Eckerburn Park East, Pear Street, Green Slopes, open water storage. Langlands Park, Deschon Street, Cooperoo, above ground tanks, Sexton Street Park, Tarragindi, Sexton Street, Tarragindi, above ground tanks, Norman Park Sports Precinct, Norman Park, Vexus Street, Norman Park, above ground tanks, Downey Park Sports Precinct, Windsor, Finsbury Street, Windsor, above ground tanks, and since 2016, number 27 is Marchant Park at Chermside, above ground storage, Acuna Oval at Camberla Creek Reserve at Kenmore, above ground storage, and Wakefield Park at Brighton, above ground storage. It's interesting to note, Mr Chair, that the independent councillor for Tennyson kept on saying LNP, LNP, LNP. I'd like to place on the record that 3 ain't bad for one independent councillor in the Tennyson ward. I'd like to commend the report to the chamber.
Further speakers? Councillor McLaughlin.
Oh, thank you, Mr Chair. I rise to speak briefly on items A, B and C, if I may. Just briefly on item A, the fantastic work being undertaken with the Oxley Creek transformation. This is a fantastic project, and this will serve us well in the next 20 years when it comes to fruition. We are continually implored by the council who's no longer in this place for the next 8 days to fix the waterways, and you can't fix the water quality, fix the waterways without fixing the banks on either side of the waterway, and that's precisely what this project is about, is addressing the issue of pollution that's been created by the land uses along either side of Oxley Creek. That's the start of the discussion that needs to be undertaken. We can undertake projects in land that is held by council, like the Archerfield wetlands area, but the majority of the land holding along the Oxley Creek is held by private owners, and to fix the quality of the water that's flowing through Oxley Creek, you have to address the issues of the land use either side. And I commend Mr Nigel Shamier, the chairman of the Oxley Creek Transformation Board, and his team and management, who are doing fantastic work on behalf of the council to undertake this wonderful transformation. Mr Chair, item B was the formal naming of Ascot Park, and the history is there. This was an area that had been known informally over 70 years ago as Ascot Park, when it was leased to Hamilton Council from the then Queensland Turf Club, but that name and that use of the area as a park was lost after the Second World War, when the Queensland Turf Club relinquished, or the lease was relinquished back to the Queensland Turf Club so they could use that area as a car park, as people started to go to the track in cars rather than catching trains. So that was it was lost, its use was lost as a park. Fortunately, we were able to negotiate in more recent years with the Brisbane Racing Club to have that area returned to the Brisbane Council for use as a park, and we have since have transformed it into a magnificent district park, but it had to be formally named. The process we went through was spelled out in the naming processes that we have to seek community support, and the strong support that we did get from the community was for Ascot Park, duly named, and I'm very pleased to see that and to declare it officially as Ascot Park. The other item, item C, also relates to an issue in my ward, a petition requesting a designated small dog off-leash area in the existing larger dog off-leash area in Crosby Park. I'm happy to take that further and to have Asset Services look at how that dog park could be divided, and then to see how it could be funded, if need be, if it has community support for dividing it up between a large dog area and a small dog area. I'd be happy to support that out of the Suburban Enhancement Fund if need be, but the first step will be to see what the community believes beyond those who signed this petition, and I'll be happy to take this idea out to the broader community to see if it will be supported.
Further speakers? Councillor Hammond. I'll now put the resolution. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillor Howard, the Field Services report, please.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the report of the Field Services Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 29th of October be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Howard, seconded by Councillor Marx, that the report of the Field Services Committee meeting dated Tuesday the 29th of October 2019 be adopted. Is there any debate? Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Chair. We had two items, the committee presentation, which was a presentation on the urban response crews, flying gangs, and a petition requesting that Council remove a large street tree located at the front of 107 Dunallen Street, Green Slopes. Through you, Mr Chair, I would just like to put on record our thanks to the flying gangs and for the work that they do. We heard at the presentation that there have been a number of improvement and initiatives for the flying gang, including working closely with compliance and regulatory services, with lifestyle and community services on illegal dumping and the placement of surveillance cameras. And so, and also the merging of the green and black flying gang services, which allow trucks and crews to become multifunctional to optimise our services. The presentation really was very interesting and allowed committee members to gain a full understanding of the work that our wonderful officers do, and I'd just like to put on record my thanks to the officers and the work they do and recommend the report to the Chamber.
Further speakers? There being none, Councillor Howard. I'll now put the report. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. The Community, Arts and Lifestyle Committee report, please.
Mr Chair, I move the report of the Community, Arts and Lifestyle Committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 29th of October 2019 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Maddox, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. The report of the Community, Arts and Lifestyle Committee meeting dated Tuesday, the 29th of October 2019 be adopted. Is there any debate? Councillor Maddox.
Mr Chairman, there was one item, and that is the presentation by officers in regards to library services, your library out and about, library outreach. I want to thank the officers very much for the presentation and highlighting to the committee the importance of the work that we do within our libraries, particularly such as the mobile library and the pop-up libraries, and how popular they are, but importantly also the added services in their engagement with community and particularly the aged in our community who may not be able to get out and about, and the Council continues to offer a variety of services of engagement around audio books and so forth. So I really want to commend the officers on the work they do and their close connection to community in providing this vital service for all the city. Thank you.
Further speakers? Councillor Maddox. I'll now put the resolution. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillor Allen, the Finance and Administration Committee, please.
Mr Chair, I move that the report of the Finance and Administration Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 29th of October 2019 be adopted.
Seconded.
It's been moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Murphy, that the report of the Finance and Administration Committee meeting dated Tuesday the 29th of October 2019 be adopted. Is there any debate? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Before moving to last week's committee report, I did want to respond to a couple of items that we took on notice in the Finance and Administration Committee meeting this morning, which Councillor Strunk raised. So he raised three particular questions. The first one was on page 2, the reason for the reduction in cash investments of $209 million in the month. The second item was also on page 2, the reason for the increase in short-term investments, currently of $70 million in the month. Page 3, the reason for unreconciled bank deposits, or bank receipts, sorry, of $1.09 million. So in response to those questions, the answers are as follows. The reduction in cash investments of $209 million in the month. These related to a decrease in cash investments due to quarterly debt service payments of $37.3 million, repayment of a Queensland Treasury Corporation working capital facility of $60 million, reallocation of cash deposits from QIC cash account to term deposits with financial institutions NAB and Suncorp Metway of $70 million, operational and capital outlays in excess of revenue in the month. Going to question 2, which was the reason for increase in short-term investments, currently of $70 million in the month. This related to term deposits invested with NAB and Suncorp Metway. And 2, this is in line with business as usual Treasury operations to invest optimal returns for short-term deposits, taking into account Council's cash flow forecasts and prevailing market rates. Question 3, which was on the unreconciled bank receipts. The amount of approximately $1 million in unreconciled bank receipts are transactions which have been recorded on the bank statement and not yet recorded in the general ledger. These receipts largely been for the last working day of Council's accounting month and are receipted through Council's revenue system in the next accounting period. Subsequently, these cheques are cleared through the normal clearing accounts. Moving to the report from last week, if I can lay my hands on it, we had an excellent report on the business intelligence function within Council, and really the focus was not so much on the business intelligence work that we're undertaking, but particularly in the provision of self-service capabilities to our frontline staff. So, as you'd be aware, Council produces a large amount of data each day across all areas of our operations, and the clever use of this data enables Council to work smarter and find innovative ways to undertake its business. Already we have used data we collect in Council to improve a number of our processes, and a great example of this is that Council is looking to improve the business process for managing stormwater drainage pipe inspections. Inspecting pipes is a timely procedure. The use of business intelligence will hopefully enable Council to better predict which stormwater pipes are more likely to need maintenance. There are more opportunities available to Council to improve processes and allow Council to work smarter, not harder. This is where business intelligence plays an important role in Council. Business intelligence takes the data produced by Council, as well as external sources such as the Bureau of Meteorology, and analyses and presents the information. Various types of tools are used to analyse the data to produce a particular outcome. Perhaps Council wants to know what time our Wi-Fi is most used, or find out how many maintenance notifications were received during a certain level of rainfall. The output and analysis of this data enables us to either answer questions or track information and performance that can help Council to optimise business processes and identify trends or even discover issues or problems. The self-service component of business intelligence equips Council staff with the ability to analyse their own data. We have available a range of tools to load, analyse and visualise data for Council employees across the board. Upskilling staff reduces the pressure on the data team within Council and also provides frontline staff with access to timely information to enable them to undertake their roles. I'll leave further debate to the chamber.
Further speakers? Councillor Allen? I now put the resolution. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillors, are there any petitions? Councillor Huang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a petition on behalf of Councillor Owen regarding a development application in Callanvale.
Councillor Allen.
I have a petition requesting Council approve the proposed development of the Bernie Bray Retirement Village at Curran Strait, Chermside.
Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Chair. I have a paper petition calling on Council to stop the rezoning of Sandgate in the Sandgate District Neighbourhood Plan Draft Strategy, and an associated e-petition titled Stop Rezoning of Sandgate District Neighbourhood Plan Draft Strategy. Another one, paper petition calling for a 30-day extension be granted to the November 4 cut-off date to provide feedback to the Sandgate District Neighbourhood Plan Strategy, and an associated e-petition calling for an extension. And a paper petition calling on Council to remove from its draft Sandgate District Neighbourhood Plan the rezoning of parts of Deagon to low-medium density residential, and an associated e-petition on the same topic, all totalling well over 1,000 signatures.
Councillor Griffiths.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a petition in relation to a request for lighting along a bikeway pathway through Kookaburra Park and Fauna Park in Rockley.
Councillor Cumming.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I've got a petition calling upon Brisbane City Council to defend the appeal by the developer of the subdivision proposed for 54 and 133 Beelarong Street, Morningside.
Councillor Shree.
Thanks. I have a petition supporting a community garden at James Warner Park in Kangaroo Point and a petition opposing a community garden at James Warner Park in Kangaroo Point.
Local council. May I please have a resolution to accept the petitions?
Mr. Chair, stop it. Mr. Chair, I move that the petitions as presented be received and referred to the committee concerned for consideration and report.
Thank you. It's been moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Cumming, that the petitions as presented be received and referred to the committee concerned for consideration and report. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. Councillors, general business. Councillors, are there any statements required as a result of the Council Conduct Review Panel order? Councillors, are there matters of general business? Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Chair. I rise tonight to speak about the dedication of the Avenue of Honour in Toowong's Anzac Park. Now, Chair, I do speak a lot about military things, or I have so far, and I am a proud former reservist and member of the Toowong RSL, so it was very moving for me to be a part of the dedication of the Avenue of Honour with the Lord Mayor and Councillor Howard in attendance. So I just want to put you in the picture a little bit, Chair. It's 1968, the 16th of May, in fact, and 3 North Vietnamese regular army battalions almost broke through the Australian lines. This battle lasted for more than a week, and at the end of it, 26 Australians died, and it was the Battle of Fire Support Base Coral and Balmoral, celebrating its 50th anniversary last year. Now, very interestingly, one of the young men who was there at the time was a man named George Hulse, who went on to become a Lieutenant Colonel in the Australian Army Reserve. He served in 4 wars, Chair: Malaya, Kashmir, PNG and Vietnam. He has been diagnosed with cancer due to his exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam. But it's men like George Hulse who have really quite literally put their lives on the line for the values that we hold dearly, Chair. And George was what they used to call a tunnel rat, one of the engineers in the army who would go into the Viet Cong tunnels searching out the enemy. Can you think of a more dangerous job, Chair? Now, George Hulse is the president of the Toowong RSL. And at the dedication of the Avenue of Honour, he gave a very moving speech, and in front of a crowd that was well represented by former servicemen and service association personnel. We also had in attendance Wing Commander Michelle Maundrell from Amberley Air Base, and she represented the service nurses. Because you see, Chair, there were 2 things dedicated on that day, the 31st of October. There was the Avenue of Honour around the ring road at Anzac Park, which was planted with a large number of flame trees. Now, we know driving around Brisbane, Chair, there are a lot of purple jacarandas. And unfortunately for the flame tree, the jacaranda does stand out a lot more than the flame tree. But the flame tree is a beautiful native tree that flowers red in November. And that tree was chosen to line the Avenue of Honour in Anzac Park to represent the blood of sacrifice. And also planted in Anzac Park were 9 lemon-scented myrtle trees to represent the white of the pinafore of the service nurses from World War I. Now, Councillor Howard and the Lord Mayor both unveiled the signs to give a narrative to the Avenues of Honour, and that was very well received. I have had tremendous feedback from the local community, which is fantastic. And just a couple of days before that, we actually planted a lone pine on the crest of the hill, and that's framed by 2 tallow woods, one of which I've spoken about previously, that's been dedicated to Canon Garland. So, Chair, it's with great honour that I represent the people and the park around, the people around Anzac Park, and I look forward to working with my local community to really make the most of what we can do for that park. Now, these things don't happen by themselves, and I do want to pay special tribute to 4 council staff officers: Keith Foster, Jim Richards, Jim Valentine and Nerida Park, without whom this park and the Avenues of Honour would not have been possible. So thank you, Chair. Thank you to the council officers, and I appreciate the Lord Mayor and Councillor Howard coming out last week to really commemorate what is a very special part of Brisbane. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. Further business? Councillor Strunk.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I just rise to speak on one item tonight, and that is an event that happened here in this place last night in the main auditorium, the night of celebration for the St. John's Anglican College. I think it's about the fourth one I've attended in this place, and certainly the main auditorium is just a magnificent piece of architecture, and its restoration, of course, is a tribute to the people of Brisbane who supported that restoration through their funding. But I really want to talk about the St. John's Anglican College itself, who have for more than 25 years have been an intricate part of the Forest Lake community. So much so that in the early days, they were really the go-to organization, such as it was at the time. It was only a primary campus. The secondary hadn't been built. But this school has been a boon for my local community in regards to showing leadership, and it continues to do so 25 years later. We have a new head of, or a new principal, Maria McIver, who took over just a little bit over 12 months ago. She had come in from Mackay, and the first time I met this lady, I knew that she was really going to fit into the local community, because those things that I hold dear in regards to community, she was very much in that ilk as well. So we also have a new chair, Stephen Scott, this year as well. So we've had a change of leadership, but everything has really just continued on and is actually improving. The awards night encapsulates or captures all the primary, the middle, and the secondary or the senior school. They come together for the awards night, and honestly, it's a sight to behold. For about 2 hours, they get through the awards and the presentations, and they take the right amount of time to do all those. But there's also plenty of entertainment as well for the. Now the whole auditorium was packed. There was standing room only. The balconies were full, and so the community, the St. John's community, comes out in force into the space. And I would recommend any other councillor to maybe suggest it to a secondary school as well in their areas, because certainly the venue is just top notch, and it's so easy to access, get in and out of it. And the parking, of course, and on a Monday night in King George Square is pretty good. So it worked out very well. I just want to congratulate them for holding a well-run, fantastic evening, something that everyone got a lot out of, and I only heard compliments as I was walking out to go to the car, that everyone was just so pleased that they'd actually taken the time to go along to see the awards, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Strunk. Any further business? Councillor Cassidy.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I just rise to speak about the passing of a former constituent of mine. I had the privilege of attending his funeral last week with a very, very large number of local residents. And that was Alan John Nagel. John, as he was known, was born in 1939 in Gympie, moved with his family down to Woolai and did much of his growing up down there, and that's where he met his wife Leslie and the love of his life, and they were married for 59 years up until his recent death. They were married just before Leslie's 18th birthday, although she points out that her 18th birthday was just a week after they were married. He tried his hand at many different things early on in life, but as they say, the sea called him, and he embarked pretty early on in his 20s on a lifetime of professional fishing, which is plays a big part, did play a big part and continues to play a big part in my ward. He was a real legend in the fishing community, in my community. Everyone that knew him, whether it was in that in the professional fishing community or associated industries, still and always have, and I think will continue to speak very, very fondly of John. He became famous in the early 1990s for all the wrong reasons that a fisherman should be, and that's his boat, the Jennifer K, which he built himself with his own two hands, got caught on an unmapped wreck north of Moreton Island, and it sunk. His two crew were rescued because he made sure they got off the boat sooner than he was, and he clung onto a broken esky overnight, which was no mean feat for a fisherman who could not swim. He was the loving father to two council employees, Jennifer, or Jen, who is my ward advisor, and Kay Douglas, who works here in council, and the grandfather to one is still current, one former council employee, Sam and Callum, and his other grandchildren, Lewis, Will and Sarah, loved him very much, and of course, as I said, was married to Leslie for 59 years and loved her until the day he died. So I want to pass on my deepest condolences to that family. They have always been an enormous support to me, and I hope that I can be a big support to them through this difficult time.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Further business, Councillor Atwood.
Yes. Thank you, Mr Chairman. Today I rise to speak about the railway level crossing outside Lyndham train station. Yesterday I was catching up on local news and read a headline. Safety overhaul of the dangerous Lyndham level crossing launched with public consultation. I thought, great. The state government have finally put some money up on the table to fix this deadly intersection. But then I read the article. Community consultation opened today for a long-awaited fix to the Lyndham level crossing, with an online forum launched to engage with residents of Brisbane's Bayside and pop-up engagement booths to be held throughout this month. I kept reading, hoping that there would be more to this story. The state government has contributed a mere $400,000 towards a feasibility study. Then I read a quote from Transport Minister Mr Bailey. This is about delivering a real solution for Lyndham and Bayside locals. Now, Mr Chairman, this started my blood boiling. Because this is a state government playing politics, and I really mean that. A survey doesn't deliver a safety overhaul. If the state Labor government was active and listening to locals on the Bayside, they wouldn't need another survey. Announcing a survey is extremely short of the $80 million this state government needs to stump up for an upgrade to an asset that is owned and managed by them. What we really need is a fair dinkum commitment by them. Last year, both LNP levels of government, council and federal, contributed a combined $125 million towards an upgrade to this level crossing because we manage our money. I'm calling on the Labor state government to put their money where their mouth is. We need elderly citizens to be able to cross this track. Last year, unfortunately, a lady did pass away because her walking aid got caught in the tracks. To the Premier and the Treasurer of Queensland, I plead, please join with the Brisbane City Council and the federal government to commit the money needed to upgrade the Lyndham level crossing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atwood. Councillor Richards.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Look, I just rise to talk about the seniors off-peak travel. And since the ward of Pullen Vale has over 9,000 seniors in it, I've met a lot over the time I've been out there for the past 3.5 years, and a lot of these residents have pioneering backgrounds from being some of the original families that were first out there who dug the soil to create the agricultural farming land that it is today. And meeting some of these characters, there's some amazing kaleidoscopes of experiences in amongst it, but there's one particular lady who still lives on acreage, still looks after her property with cattle on it, and still has her own veggie patch. But the interesting thing, the cost of living that's occurring in our city is extreme, that she has found other ways to try and compensate that. And that means at times she has no power on. She turns it off completely. She manually pumps from the dam so that her cattle can have some water. So I'm always just, whenever I'm driving by her place or her street, I actually drop up and see how she's going just to make sure she's okay. But I got a little message from her the other day that just, I don't know whether I wanted to cry or laugh all at the same time, but she's a real character. So I'll just share the bit that really hit me the most, which is, it's so gratifying when somebody like you recognises us. You being this council. The discount bus fare allows me to travel to special places in Brisbane, like the City Hall expedition that she had recently, which was a long-winded story, but it was wonderful to hear. But it now permits me the provision of another Meals on Wheels. Thank you, you are special. So it's those moments that really epitomises the words Brisbetter. It's this Schrinner administration who recognise the cost of living is going up, but we're doing everything we can to help everyone of this great city to enjoy the lifestyle we have. Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Councillor Richards, is there any further business? Councillor Landers, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I rise to speak on Brackenridge Ward events. It has been a busy week in Brackenridge Ward. The Aspley Memorial Bowls Club had the cover over Green 1 officially opened by Federal Member for Petrie Luke Howarth and Federal Member for Dixon Peter Dutton on behalf of the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development. It was great to attend with my colleague, Councillor Tracy Davis, and invited special guest Amanda Cooper to share in the culmination of the club's hard work in raising funds and successful application for a federal grant. The all-weather cover will be safer and more comfortable to use in rain, hail or shine, attracting new members to the club and encouraging school students to participate in bowls as a sport. The upgrade, with federal funding of $590,000 and over $160,000 raised by the club, included lighting and drainage upgrades. This was an extraordinary effort for a club that managed to raise this contribution without poker machines. Along with the members, neighbours, local businesses and community groups, we enjoyed a delicious lunch provided by club members. The Aspley Memorial Bowls Club has been an important part of my local community since 1926 and continues to go from strength to strength. The club has a reputation of being the friendly club, Mr Deputy Chair, and encourages everyone, young and old, of all skills to visit and play. Another grand opening in my ward of Brackenridge was the Aspley East C&K's new playground. Along with funds raised by the kindergarten, contributions were also provided through the Lord Mayor's Community Benefit Fund and through the federal government. This project was designed and delivered by the children and the parents from the 2018 and 2019 cohorts and steered by the wonderful Centre Director Marie and President Casey. The children from 2018 were so excited to return to the kindy to see their suggestions come to life and join with the 2019 class to put the new equipment to the test. Mr Deputy Chair, Brackenridge Ward is a hub of activity with end-of-year gatherings and celebrations happening across all ages. The Northside Singers entertain the community with a medley of musical hits on Saturday at the Bald Hills Uniting Church. Women from all parts of the globe met in friendship over a shared lunch of many cuisines at the Worldly Women Meet and Greet afternoon at Zilmia PCYC. And youth from St John Fisher College, Aspley State High School and my old school, Brackenridge State High School, celebrated a year of academic, sport and cultural achievements at award evenings, with Sandgate High and St Paul's to follow this week. What an outstanding effort our young people have made in 2019, and they, along with their teachers and parents, should be very proud of their success. The future of our community is in good hands with these impressive and motivated young adults, and I particularly wish the grade 12s all the very best in their future endeavours and congratulate them on the completion of their secondary studies. Thank you, Deputy Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Landers. Is there any further business? Councillor Marx.
Mr Deputy Chair, just rise very briefly to congratulate and thank the Lord Mayor Adrian Schrinner for the Movies in the Park initiative. I had my first one on the weekend, and I just want to pass on a very special message that I received from a local resident. I was packing up and getting ready to sort of put stuff away, and the movie had started, and this lady came marching quite determinedly towards me, and I don't know if any of you have ever seen a lady with a muko, but it can be quite intimidating. Anyway, she had the muko on, she was coming up towards me, and I'm like, oh God, what have I done? And she came up, she gave me a big hug and a kiss on the cheek, and she said, thank you to you and the Lord Mayor, because this event is what brings my family together. And I think that's what it's all about, and I thank the Lord Mayor very much. Thank you.
Any further business? There be nobody rising to their feet. I declare the meeting closed.